welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. We have the silly for next week. Today, we have a very serious topic. We're going to be talking about abortion. It's a wide topic. There's a lot to cover. Recently, as we are all well aware, Roe v. Wade was overturned, and this was put back to the states. Was that a good call? What is the correct call? Are the states protecting women's rights? Should abortion be an actual protected right in the United States? Why or why not? We'll get to it. There's lots to go over. But first, I want to let everyone know that I do get a check from Progressive Victory. So does Pixie. No one else here does, though, so we're all good. And with that disclosure out of the way, let's begin. Let's start with 𝕵𝖎𝖎. Go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, from the legal point of view, since I don't know that my individual morals matter that much in the form of a debate, but I think Roe v. Wade being overturned was a good thing. I think it should be left up to the states. I don't think Roe v. Wade was particularly well argued, as Ruth Bader Ginsburg even admitted. You know, one of its firmest proponents also said it was only a matter of time before it got overturned. If you want the federal government to have rule over that, you need to legislate it. And there's a reason why we haven't been able to, which is that there's not major support to do so. So I think that it should be left up to the states. My personal legal standpoint on it is anywhere from 8 to 10 week makes sense. Gives 90 to 93% of abortions, depending on where you look, happen before that time. And it falls in line with what the majority of the population believes is worth protecting.
Okay, thanks for that. We'll get into it, I'm sure. Rashad, go ahead.
I firmly believe that the overturning of Roe v. Wade is not in line with what Americans want. I think that the losses Republicans have taken in elections is evidence enough alone of that. I think that the right decision would have been to enshrine into federal law women's rights to their bodies, and I think that was the best choice. And I think that we'll start to see how much people actually cared about that issue in the upcoming elections. I think it'll affect the presidency very much. So that's my take for now.
Yeah, we'll get into it as we go. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you. Next up, Lactoid. What do you got?
Yeah, so a while ago, back in 1973, there was a really bad case called Roe versus Wade that happened. And the reason why it's a bad case is not necessarily because of the fact that it dealt with abortion. The reason why it was a bad case is because it was politically motivated and it was pulled out of the ass of the people who drafted the opinion. It was a weak case the day it was ruled. A lot of people on the left even acknowledged that, which is why a lot of people on the left, including Bernie Sanders, had pushed for codifying abortion access into federal law. Um, Later, Roe was kind of taken down a notch by Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which allowed states to regulate abortion as long as they didn't pose an undue burden, whatever that meant. There was, they invented a whole new test to start applying, and then Dobbs happened, in which Alito correctly analyzed the history of abortion in America and determined that Roe and Casey were wrongly decided, which they absolutely were. So now we have it as it was, which is that it's up to the states. I think abortion is a particularly difficult ethical issue. I think it makes sense to leave it up to the states right now. Um, and yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get into it as we go. There's lots of strings to pull here. But last but certainly not least, Pixie, what you got?
Basically, when it comes to the topic of Roe v. Wade, I think the overturning of it was a disaster for this nation. I think just like from a moral, like ethical principle point of view, the idea that, oh no, we should leave it up to the states makes little to no sense to me, especially in the context of should the state really have a say in your bodily autonomy? Don't we all have rights regardless, or that go above the state when it comes to our right to ourselves and our body, essentially? I think that we should definitely codify Roe into law. I'm not disagreeing with that part. But I do think the general populace as a whole agrees with the idea that, like, hey, we should have more leeway when it comes to abortion, that total or even like basically total or almost full partial abortion bans are way out there, not what the general populace wants. And we've seen that again as a reaction to the supposed red wave that was supposed to happen, as well as other like local legislative legislative elections. So that's where I currently stand. Those are my opinions, my thoughts.
We'll get into it as we go. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. So let's talk about it. It has been overturned, whether we like it or not, and it has been kicked back to the states. Many states have been, I think, pretty reasonable about it. They've put it up to the constituents of the state, whether or not it should be codified into their constitution, etc. But then we have some outliers, and hopefully 𝕵𝖎𝖙 will be back. Jeb, you okay? We good?
I scared him.
Yeah, I
He was
messaged
like,
you. I was just trying to fix my webcam because my
Okay,
Discord wasn't picking
I
it
can
up
see you
after I
now.
changed my settings.
good, great. This is wonderful for my production. I love it. No, it's fine. Hopefully it's good now. Okay, great. Uh
We're good now.
to the topic. The states, some have been pretty reasonable about it, kicking it to the constituents who've been able to, for the most part, talk about codifying it into law. But then we have some outliers states. So to 𝕵𝖎𝖙 and legality, the first question's for you. Given the fact that we have seen some pretty horrendous laws, in my opinion, personal opinion here, in Texas and Alabama, for example, making counting IVF as children, like in vitro fertilization eggs as children. Do you worry that maybe the federal government needs to step in some of these extreme cases? What do you think?
Lactoid may have a different opinion, but no, not really. I think that you are kicking it to the people by putting it to the states. Obviously, right now you're going to see the snapshot image of what current state governments want right now. And like the Democrats said, apparently this has been fueling a crazy blue wave, and all the states are going to flip blue, and they're going to that'll make them change their state laws to what the blue people want. But I don't think it'll happen that severely. But yeah, certainly I expect those state laws to change as different people come in and get elected, just like all state laws change. Roe v. Wade being in existence for the last 40 years has been the reason why that evolution hasn't been allowed to happen over the past 40 years. State laws haven't had the right to change with public opinion over the past 40, 50 years because Roe v. Wade has kept them from being able to legislate it basically at all. So any snapshot issue that we're having because of overturning Roe v. Wade is due to the restriction on state law imposed by Roe v. Wade. If the states were allowed to set these laws 40 years ago, maybe they'd have changed by now, but they haven't been challenged yet. So
What do you think, Lactoid?
So the reason why a lot of these laws are seen as bad, I suppose, is because oftentimes they're old laws. Following the 14th Amendment, a lot of these anti-abortion laws were put into place. I'm all or most. I don't remember if there was one state that partially allowed it, but basically all of America was unified on the issue of abortion before Roe versus Wade, in that it was illegal everywhere. Right? It was banned by the same people who wrote the 14th Amendment and ratified it. That people also went on to ban abortion in the late 1800s. So a lot of the laws are old. The Alabama IVF case was correctly decided given what the law is in Alabama, but that case also is like misrepresented a lot, to the point where even pro-choice people might actually be in favor of like that particular ruling, because it was like somebody like uh, walked into a freezer where they weren't supposed to be and destroyed somebody else's embryos that they were going to be using for IVF. So it wasn't like somebody destroying their own embryos or whatever. So I mean, that particular case, people misrepresent. But yeah, I think that if you want different laws, the onus is on you to make new laws, which have been happening, right? I mean, you have Ohio, for example, and many other states adding this into their constitution. And that's the process, right? You don't rely on a shitty case to enforce your rules here. You rely on the process.
Okay. Um, replies, my Rashad and Pixie. Go ahead.
I think there's a couple of things to break down here. I think saying like, oh no, now it's going to be up to like essentially like legislative freedom. They haven't had the freedom before, blah blah blah. Now that's gonna happen. I don't think that's necessarily true or the case. For example, like in Arizona, we had the Supreme Court of Arizona try to enforce a law from 1864, I believe. Yeah, 1864, trying to put a near total abortion ban, which seemed to go against the general wishes of the legislator, or at least like polling in that area as well. So to me, that's a clear example of like, oh no, like states trying to do some fuckery when it comes to trying to enforce their belief versus what the general populace wants. I think in Ohio too, before that, Republicans were trying to block what is it? Like essentially general polling that could influence essentially having the abortion ban or not having an abortion ban take place. I also think on top of all of that, you guys keep saying state rights. You guys keep repeating state rights, state rights, state rights, state rights. My question to you is, does the state have a right to violate your bodily autonomy? Because that's the crux of this issue, right?
I
Um,
mean, so that's kind of the debate: is it actually an enshrined right in the Constitution? If the case, no. If it's not the case, then yes. And the Supreme Court has decided that
did
they're
I
not
frame?
doing that.
Okay,
So
so there's a couple of things that to go down here. First of all, the Constitution, like part of the Constitution, literally states that not all rights are explicitly in the Constitution. I forgot exactly what amendment that is. I know it's in the Bill of Rights. James Madison specifically put that in there because he knew that people would make the argument of, oh, if it's not explicitly in the Constitution, then it's not a right that you can have, which isn't true. Um, Second of all, yeah, basically, it goes back to a question like bodily autonomy. Do you believe people have a right to bodily autonomy?
yeah, of course, but this again, it's not necessarily the question. So the even the court case wasn't necessarily about bodily autonomy; it was about the right to privacy. But the issue with that mentality with it, and just assuming again by asking me the question, "Do you believe people have the right to bodily autonomy?" You're sort of tying in abortion is bodily autonomy. Just because James Madison said some rights are not enshrined directly in the Constitution that exist doesn't mean every right we decide is in the Constitution that isn't is. So that's why we have the Supreme Court, and the overturning of Roe v. Wade was the Supreme Court saying we do not believe there is an implied right to abortion based on your right to medical privacy in the 14th Amendment. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg had backed that up about a decade prior when she even said this Roe v. Wade is going to be on life support. Like, it is going to get overturned. It's a poorly argued case. It's very easy to overturn because of how weak the connection is with the actual text of the Constitution. You guys need to legislate it. And so the same thing that you brought up with the Arizona law in 1865, we say, how wild is it that they wanted to institute a law from 1865? That law was on the books. So the Supreme Court upheld the current abortion
Yeah.
law in Arizona.
Laws just don't expire, right?
Yeah.
Like unless there's something in them that's set that like makes them
Or
expire.
unless, as the people of Arizona became more and more progressive on that issue, they had the chance to vote on abortion legislation, but they never did because Roe v.
No,
Wade
they
kept
did.
Arizona from being able to do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, 6 days ago, Arizona
6
did
days ago.
pass. Yeah, 6 days ago, Arizona did vote to repeal that legislation. So they're
No.
doing it via the process.
So imagine if that happened 20 years ago when Arizona probably got progressive enough to repeal that law. We wouldn't even have to have this conversation in 2024.
No, I don't think you guys understand. I'm not communicating clearly my crux with this issue, essentially. You're saying, oh no, the Supreme Court has essentially decided that it is up to the states to decide to legislate this right. And what I'm saying is that even if the Supreme Court decided that, there's a deeper underlying moral issue at play at here, like a
Mhm.
moral issue at hand. If the Supreme Court decided, and I'm going to use a random example just so you guys can see like what I'm getting to. If the Supreme Court decided, hey, you know what, segregation, um, that's up to the states to decide. That's going to be a state rights thing. Like we don't get to decide essentially whether segregation is something that should be decided federally. We're going to let the states decide whether that's moral or not. We
Mhm.
would obviously all come here together and say that's fucked up. People have a fundamental human right when it comes to being treated equally, and that should be regardless of class or regardless of race, essentially, or sex. Um, so if we can agree on the like this basic fundamental idea that there are certain rights that a human being should have, regardless of what state they are in, then it doesn't matter essentially if the Supreme Court decided to like decides that it should be federal or state. I'm asking you guys from a moral standpoint, from the moral issue. Do you guys believe in the right to bodily autonomy?
Oh, if you're asking strictly morally, yes, absolutely. I believe in the right to bodily autonomy for both the woman and the prospective child. So I don't think that at every point in a pregnancy, you are only violating the woman's bodily autonomy when you're making legislation about abortion. I think by not offering certain protections at least certain points in pregnancy, which 90% of the country agrees with me on, you are also violating bodily autonomy of a child. It just depends on which. At what point are you?
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
just
so
just
legally
real quick,
speaking,
I see the super likes. I'll get to them at the top of the hour. Sorry, I got to make a little money, right? I see the memberships. Thanks for the memberships. That's great. We're gonna pass the ball back to Lactoid, but then I want to get Rashad in here as well, but I want to give Pixie a chance to respond to this as well. So pass the ball to Lactoid, and we'll continue on. Go ahead.
yeah. So legally speaking, like constitutionally speaking, legally speaking, there's not really this concept of bodily autonomy. There is this concept of privacy that's kind of strangely applied sometimes, like in Griswold, for example, why birth control is private, but for some reason fentanyl isn't. It's very inconsistent. The same people that drafted the 14th Amendment, again, like the abortion, you mentioned 1864. I mean, this is the same people who later on were ratifying the 14th Amendment, right? So the same people banning abortion were also the ones drafting the amendment that created the right to privacy, arguably, right? Without the 14th Amendment, you don't get the right to privacy. And these people were against abortion. So I don't think it's reasonable to assume that the people who were putting in the right to privacy thought that abortion would be included within that right. My personal moral philosophy, it gets a little bit difficult, right? I think that where it becomes a person is a kind of a difficult argument, a difficult question. I don't really know exactly. I'm thinking probably maybe 8 to 12 weeks personally. But once it is a person, once we have a human being there, a person, then I think that at that point you don't really have a right to abortion. And I kind of liken this to the hypothetical of, yeah, you have a right to your body, but if you pick up a child and or put them in your car and you're driving down the road, you also have a right to your car. But you can't just like in the middle of the highway say, "Oh, this is my car. Get out of my car," and throw the baby out the window, right? You put this person in a position where they need you to survive now. And when you put people in a position where they need you to survive, you have a duty to see them through until they're safe. That's how every law works.
Um, I can respond right now, but if
Please.
Rashad wants
No,
to,
go
okay,
ahead.
I'll go for it.
We'll get
Okay, there's
Rashad
a
in when
couple
he's
things.
when he's ready. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so I just
okay, do you want to go or should I go?
I'm confused. I don't want to.
Pixie, then Rashad. I'll choose since you can't
Okay,
choose. Okay.
thanks.
Come on, let's go. Pixie.
Okay, so let's break it down here. Let's start with the fact that if we can all agree that there's a certain level of bodily autonomy a human being should have, and maybe we can argue that life begins at one point, maybe you lose that right to full bodily autonomy. I'll put this in this corner for now. The fact is that if you believe this is a fundamental human right everybody has, then it makes no sense to say that the state should essentially dictate whether you have that right or not. So essentially, what I'm saying is that we should all, theoretically speaking, here come to an agreement that when it comes to total abortion bans or near total abortion bans, where they're saying like essentially like as early as fucking possible, maybe even right off the bat, just so you find out you're pregnant, you're fucked. Um, that would be a clear violation of bodily autonomy if you believe that's not a baby yet, essentially. If you believe the pregnant woman still has a right to the bodily autonomy. I also want to say, Lactoid, can you repeat the last point that you made one more time?
I think that you can put
Oh,
yourself in. Yeah, you can put yourself in a position where you have a duty to other people if you put them in a position where they need you to survive.
yeah. So it's kind of interesting that you used the example that you did because the first thing that came to my mind was the example I liken it to is that when you go out driving, let's say it's a night, it's kind of raining, whatever, you decide to go out and drive your car. And then when you do this, you get into a car crash, whatever. Let's say it wasn't really your fault. It was a street. It was, like grimy dirt or like not very well salted, whatever. Maybe it was icy, whatever. You get into a car crash. The other person is now in critical condition. Is the government legally allowed to enforce you to essentially give up your organs or give up some of your blood or essentially connect you to this person that you got into a car crash with for the next 9 months or even longer? Is the government even allowed to potentially alter your body, like, for the rest of your livelihood because of this unfortunate accident?
So right now, that's I would doubt it. I don't think that the government would be able to do that
But
legally
should
speaking.
they?
Yes, I think they should be able to. I think that if you cause an accident, right? So there's gonna be comparison of fault, and obviously this happens for every accident. And if you cause an accident, if you hit somebody and now they need a kidney or now they need like to be hooked up to you for a certain amount of time, you cause them to be in this position. I think you should. I think you should have an obligation to give them your kidney or to hook them up to you
What
because
do you
you are the one that put them in that position.
yeah, what do you think, 𝕵𝖎𝖙? Same question.
It's a really interesting bullet to bite. I'd have to really, I mean, that's one I would probably have to think about a little bit longer than just like instantaneously on the panel. But for me, I don't like the connection at all because she's trying to sort of do an analogy, but then also take one literal part of the analogy and make it true. The issue with that being the woman was the one who put the child in her body, just like the woman was the one who put the child in the car in Lactoid's analogy. It was her original decision that put the child in that position. Whereas in Pixie's analogy, it wasn't your original choice that attached your body to them in the first place. That's the whole point of the analogy, is we're making it not about the physical body. And she's trying to bridge it in this weird, like sort of bastardized analogy way where it's half the exact same thing and then half an analogy, and it doesn't really fit.
Well,
The
I
issue with
think
this is the child needs to be attached to your body because you attached the child to your body.
what is it?
Hey,
I
one
think
sec,
the
I gotta
prob
answer my door. Someone's ringing my door.
Really?
okay.
You're gonna
I'll
just drop
Maybe,
that and
maybe,
go
Maybe.
answer the door?
may,
Man,
maybe
look,
she's
you have a
That was a
responsibility. You
Chad
have put
move, by the
yourself
way.
on my panel. You cannot abort yourself from my panel. Okay? You cannot. We're making a law, a rule right now. That's illegal. Okay. But
but it seems like abortions don't have to be. I mean, not abort. Pregnancies don't necessarily have to be intentional, right? Like it's possible to not necessarily be planning for a kid, but to have one. Now we can say, of course, oh, you could have used this or you could have used that, but obviously sometimes things happen, right? Some things happen. Perspectives can change. You can realize you're pregnant and say, wait, I don't really know if I want to have this kid. You could find out the person you're having the kid with was a little bit different than what you thought they were, and now that there's a kid in the equation and maybe you're not too keen on being connected to that person for the rest of your life through a child. I think things can change. So I don't think Pixie's analogy is entirely too bad because it's really not all that uncommon to accidentally, the act itself of getting pregnant, not necessarily accidental, right? But the fact that you were pregnant wasn't necessarily the intended result. And should you be, held, permanently responsible and forced to keep this child, regardless of circumstances that may change,
Yeah.
perspectives that may change and stuff like that.
I don't even disagree that the analogy was that bad because yeah, I mean, although I think most of the time this is because of intentional action, the actual impregnation oftentimes is unintended. But we can change my hypothetical to also account for this, right? So let's say you're kind of being absent-minded or whatever, and you're watching a kid, and then like the kid climbs, and you're in charge of watching the kid, okay? And then the kid climbs in your back seat, and then you get behind the wheel and you're driving, and then you look back and you see the kid. At that point, do you guys think that you should be able to throw the kid out the window when you're going highway speeds?
No, but that's a bit different. These
Why?
hypotheticals, I want to make it abundantly clear first and
That's my
foremost. I have
property. It's
not,
my car.
I have not joined. I'm acquiescing to these hypotheticals. No, I don't think it's the same thing.
Why?
This
It's
is
my
it-
car. I don't want the kid in my car. I want the kid out the window. It's fine.
it's
And
quite different because it's not
and
a
it will
fully
certainly
formed.
kill the kid.
let
So
him go.
Yeah, the child in the car is a full formed child. This is if we're talking about like a baby that's not fully, developed and especially not born. There's just a different scenario. It's not the exact same. The intent isn't the same in the removal of the child. You have a lot more agency. The child is not the child hopping in your car. You can stop the car, ask the kid who their parents are. There's so many different things you can do to separate yourself from this kid in a non-lethal way. Um, as it pertains to pregnancy, I mean, that's a completely different scenario in which you can choose to, before this child can experience any pain, before this child can be basically, a developed baby, you can separate this child from your life, literally. So it's a bit different. I don't think it's the exact same thing. Shoving the kid out of a moving vehicle, you can just stop it, find who the parents are, and, end it.
It's
And the situation is different from a pregnancy.
you can find distinctions, but it's actually the same when if you're factoring in the idea of like autonomy, right? Which is kind of the current topic, which is this is mine, so I should have control over it. Well, again, like I generally agree with this. I generally agree that if it's yours, you should have control over it. In situations in which you put somebody else in a position, right, due to negligence or due to intentional action, if you put somebody else in a position where now they will die unless you see them through the danger, right? I forget that I put my kid on my boat and now we're out in the ocean. I don't get to toss the kid out into the ocean, because that'll kill the kid, and I'm responsible for this kid. So I have to at least, even if it's a 9-month voyage, I have to keep the kid alive until we get back into port.
Yeah,
Well, I
and
think
I'm sorry, go ahead.
you know you can go. You can go.
Mine is kind of a derailing. So go ahead and say your thing, and then I'll kind of because I want to move it because I think we're sort of on the point where we're talking
Well,
about is it a human
after
or
we
if
get
it's
through
not.
this,
Sure.
I have a question for Pixie and Rashad, actually. So say your piece,
Okay.
Rashad, and then we'll.
Yeah, I was gonna say that of course there's a little bit of a lack of nuance to the whole "it's my body, it's my autonomy," but I think that statement carries a certain level of unspoken explanation behind it. Like, hey, it's my body. If the baby daddy's a piece of shit, and I really don't want my life to be connected to this person for the rest of my life, and I'm at an early stage in my pregnancy where I can get, I can end this. There's no pretty way of putting it. Um, they're basically saying, yeah, like I would like to be able to reserve my autonomy to avoid XYZ negative situation for myself or the child. Maybe financial things change, family situations change. I want the autonomy to make decisions that could spare myself or possibly even the child pain. And I think that it's a little bit more than just, hey, it's my body, my choice. I think there's unspoken nuances to that statement. Of course, people don't, obviously, most people don't go into detail. They don't really feel the need to. But I think it's a little bit deeper than just, hey, it's my car or hey, it's my body. There are underlying nuances and extra factors to pregnancy that go beyond being in a car with a kid that somehow ninjaed their way into the back seat. So
Yeah,
that would be my
and then
response.
so since Pixie's not here for your thing, I'll just say my thing really quick, which is probably because I think it can save us some time because we're sort of on this, when the baby becomes a life thing. Do the states have the right to decide total abortion bans if we don't know when the baby becomes human? I kind of don't care because while my legislative compromise would be taking into account people caring about that, I don't actually think I disagree with the big Destiny take that's taken over liberal Twitch poll that we don't care about the prospect of future life. That is without value to us. And every single analogy people use, every decision we make is based upon whether that person will at some point be able to be alive and live on their own. So that's why what I find to be the only morally consistent barrier for when life begins is at implantation. And after implantation, it is like a 90+% chance that that baby will be able to be healthfully carried to term and be born. And so that is when it is worth protecting because I don't buy this bullshit. I've never heard an analogy that proves it well, that we only care about if they're able to be alive, if they're a human or sentient right now. We always care about future possibility of sentience, even in the person in a coma analogy that everybody likes to use. Like you pull the plug if they're in a coma and you have no idea if they're ever going to wake up or you don't think they're ever going to wake up. I'm like, yeah, exactly. You are taking a bet on whether that person will become sentient again at some point. And that is what you're basing your decision off of. So if after implantation, a baby is 90% likely to be carried to term healthfully and become a living baby that we do find worth protecting, I do think that's the only morally consistent place to draw a line for life.
Okay, Pixie's computer crashed. Hopefully she'll be back soon. But in the meantime, okay, I will
Lord have mercy.
put my thumb on the scale a little bit. Okay, if you guys don't mind, just to make sure it's not
Liberal.
a 2v1.
Sure.
So I get it, right? For me personally, I don't like abortion. I don't. I would never get one. I would never advise. I would never participate in one, right? However, I think that when we make laws, we should do it on not just the 90% of times, but the 10%. And we have to look at how these laws will affect the niche cases, the scenarios where it's not exactly on the level. It's not so easy, right? And when we talk about things like rape, when we talk about things like incest, when we talk about things like that aren't pretty topics but do happen, and
Sure.
pregnancy is involved, I do think having laws, and federal laws at that, to enshrine these rights are important, because even though in 90% of the cases it's not going to be needed, in those 10% of the cases where it is needed, it's important that the doctor not worry whether or not he's going to go to jail, because there's
Yeah.
a time limit on these things. If I may finish
Sure,
just real
I
quick.
agree. I agree. But I don't think anyone on the pro-abortion side here would be satisfied if I said, "Fine, we have federal protections for abortion only in cases of rape, incest, or threat to the life of the mother, and forcing state laws on abortion to consider implantation the beginning of life." So, like, you can't attack IVF, you can't attack birth control because those happen. Those operate pre-implantation in most cases. I don't think anyone here would be satisfied with that, because they still would say a total abortion ban, even with exceptions
Well,
for
that comes
rape,
into
incest,
my
and medical.
yeah, that comes into
Well,
my
that-
question. That comes into my question. This is welcome back, Pixie. This is to Pixie and Rashad, to your side. Is there any scenario that you can imagine where you think that an abortion should be illegal? Like, is there any point where you think the government should make any sort of abortion, like the day before the due date, right? Or like, what's your line here exactly, if any? And I'll let Rashad go first, and I'll let Pixie go.
Yeah, I'd say like the day before I'm not gonna lie, I can't say that I would agree with that. I can't say that I would agree with it when the baby is like basically fully formed and is like basically a complete, excuse my lack of medical and biological knowledge, but basically a complete baby, so to speak, and it's just waiting on being born to finally be, in this world. However, I think if the woman has, is on top of her game, she knows that she's pregnant, it's very early in the pregnancy, she's not wasting time. Not even necessarily very early, but as long as, this is not a fully formed baby that within a month or weeks could easily be born and, breathe oxygen on its own, I don't think that I think I would cut it off there. I think there would be a cutoff. Yeah, definitely a cutoff in terms of, the baby being able to breathe and survive on its own.
Pixie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, recently with Rashad, that basically, if you can force an induction, which you can do, and the baby can survive like by itself outside the womb at that point, then that's fine. You probably should do that instead of killing it. Um, I just don't believe that before then it really makes sense. I also think that also a tough question in general, because it comes back to it does to me it always comes back to bodily autonomy, essentially, because even if you believe that it is like a living human being, then it comes to the question of like, oh, can the government legislate what you do within your body? And I think separate from even like having growing a child there, like and I'm an extremist here. This is me being more a libertarian than a progressive at this point. But when it comes to even like quick cases of like, let's say, drugs or alcohol, like, do you believe a woman should go to jail if she consumes those substances while she has a child?
Yeah, like if she drinks to the point of excess where she harms the baby. Yeah, I think everybody who gives their kid fetal alcohol syndrome should probably get some sort of child neglect charge. I don't know how they should deal with it in terms of balancing still having a mother to care for the kid and punishing her for what she's done, but maybe she's interned for however long the child has to be sat in the hospital
Hold
on
on.
It should
machine.
be illegal to drink alcohol while pregnant. And it should also be illegal for you to sell alcohol to somebody who you suspect may be pregnant.
What would the punishment be in your opinion, Lactoid? Say you have a woman, she knows she's pregnant, she has a glass of wine at dinner. Do the feds break in, take her away? Like, what happens?
Well, I'm generally opposed to no-knock raids, but I mean, you would have some kind of penalty. I don't know exactly what kind of penalties, but I mean,
A
up into,
fine?
I mean, yeah, like however you would treat child abuse is how we would treat it, right? So, like, if we discover it, there's going to be penalties associated with that.
Weird, because it's essentially like child abuse essentially for consuming substances in your body, right? So to me, it would be like
Mhm.
essentially, I'm trying to think about a similar scenario. Um, so for example, what if the woman is super depressed and tries to kill herself? And in the process, obviously, if she kills herself, the child is still in there.
Mhm.
The child would die also. to me, that's a severely ill woman. I don't know if I would advocate for her going to jail. But through extension of your logic, or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm genuinely asking here. Do you guys think that the suicidal depressed mother who tried to kill herself should be in jail for trying
I
to kill
mean,
herself?
she should be charged, but we have a bunch of structures in place for dealing with people who may have committed a crime solely due to mental illness. But they will then be court ordered to get help for those mental illnesses so that they don't continue to hurt that child. Instead of just saying, "You were sad. It's okay if you tried to pill yourself to death with a baby in your stomach."
I'm actually pretty libertarian. I think that people should have the right to, if they commit suicide, I think there's the right to do that. But if they're pregnant, they should have to wait until they give birth, at the very least.
This is I don't. We are crossing lines here. I don't know if we wanted to get into a mates debate right now. I really don't. But let's keep it on track a little bit here.
I mean, it was a good question.
It
She
was a
was
good
hammering out
question,
our
but
morals on
and
it.
to follow up that, right? And I'm very curious, Pixie. Like, do you think that there should be, like, obviously you probably would disagree if a woman took a glass of wine while she was pregnant, and you probably don't think anything probably should happen to her. But let's look at the extremes here. Let's say a woman who is just downing gallons of alcohol, right? She has no intention of getting an abortion. She just doesn't care. Do you think that that woman should be able to keep that child after the birth? Do you think nothing should happen to that woman? Oh no.
Oh,
Your hardware
Oh
muted, I think.
no.
What happened?
Oh, you're good
There you
now.
go.
Oh yeah, we
You're
couldn't
good
hear
now.
anything you said beforehand.
I was gonna say, what is it? When it comes to scenarios like that, I think, and this is my progressive side. Maybe you guys will disagree with me on this. To me, that's also a form of self harm, right? Just like basically like drowning yourself in alcohol, or taking drugs to an excess where it's like harmful to your body. Um, I think at that point you should, like, you should get help. I don't think you should be in jail. I don't think you should be charged for what is it, child neglect. At that point in time, it's kind of weird because it's inside your body essentially, and you're like essentially like you're essentially like exerting your right to autonomy by taking those substances. It's just you're exerting your right in such a way that's even like harmful to yourself, whether a baby existed there or not. So that point in time, I'm just like, yeah, like you need mental help essentially.
I see it very similar to, like, what if I went into like a very small enclosed space with like a baby and just started like smoking cigarettes? Would that be acceptable behavior?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between like acceptable behavior and then behavior that you believe should be like punished under the law. Um
But that should be punished, right? Like if I take a kid into a small room and just start like going through like Marlboros and like it's smoky as all hell in there, right? That obviously should be illegal.
yeah, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. But then this is just gonna go back to like, okay, like that's a fully formed human being at that point.
Right. And this is what like, this is really what it comes like. I think this is why I think the abortion conversation ultimately comes down to like what is or isn't a person. Because a lot of the bodily autonomy, a lot of the arguments for abortion, and we haven't really had them because Roe v. Wade was in place for so long. A lot of the
Legality.
arguments for a lot of the arguments for abortion um, don't actually compart with the reasons why women get abortion, right? So, like rape and incest, for example, are constantly like pushed as a talking point by people who are very pro-life. But like the rates of women who report getting an abortion because of these two reasons are like extraordinarily low, sub 1%, right? The biggest reasons why women get abortion is because it's going to interfere with their career, having a kid. It's going to interfere with their studying. It's going like they don't feel ready to have a kid yet. Like those are like the real reasons. And so when you have economic reasons that are pushing women to get abortions, but the actual only moral arguments that they're pushing are things that are completely unrelated to why they actually want to get the abortion, um, you're never really going to move somebody on moral arguments alone unless you can like
But
actually address something differently.
Mhm.
does it have to be? Does the justification even need to be rape or incest? I mean, even just forcing a child to be born to a mother that doesn't want them at all, that in and of itself is a question of morality. Forcing a child to be born to two parents that basically just die. Well, okay. Forcing a baby to be born to two parents that don't want them at all is also a question of morality as well. If you have two people expressing, hey, look, we thought we might have wanted to have a kid, but fuck all that, we don't. And if we have this kid, we're really not going to be happy about it. That is a question of morality in and of itself. And if you're forcing both of these parents to give birth to this child, regardless of the argument of you guys knew what you were doing when you had sex, da 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 da, here we are at a situation where these two parents are expressing a strong amount of dislike toward being parents. And you have, society saying, because this isn't rape or this isn't incest or whatever the case might be, you will have this baby. That's also a question of morality.
Let me clarify what I mean. What I mean by this is saying that, like, the bodily autonomy argument, if we invented a way to, like, remove an embryo and to grow it separately and then to give it back to the mother at the end when it's a fully formed baby, this would be an unacceptable, because the bodily autonomy argument doesn't work anymore. But this would still be an unacceptable alternative to most women who get abortions, because they're not getting abortion because they're concerned with bodily autonomy. They're getting an abortion because they want to keep their careers and they want to, like, go to school. These are the reasons why. So I think bodily autonomy is a little bit like of a red herring. When you're talking about, like, well, what about kids whose parents hate them? Like, we don't want to bring kids up in, like, a bad life. This is like really concerning argument, because it justifies infanticide, just straight up, right? Like, orphans have a bad life, so why not we just, instead of an orphanage, have, like, death chambers?
Yep.
I'm not okay with this alternative.
These two things aren't exactly the same, right? Here you have a child that's already been born, is gonna feel pain if killed, right? But on the alternative,
you could make it painless, right?
On the alternative, we have a fetus that's not going to experience any pain. It's a completely different scenario from taking a child that's been born and could be protected, possibly given to someone that wants them, right? I mean, it's just a different scenario. I mean, I wouldn't say
there's
these
a
two things are
massive adoption
exactly.
list right now, and
Yeah.
you can
I don't think these
kill
two things-
painlessly too.
I mean, if you
The
guys want to
difference-
take these kids and raise them, by all means.
Yeah, can I jump in? Because it
I
seems
don't wanna
like
fucking
every
take-
single step we're
I
going.
mean, I'm
so
just
you
saying,
don't
like,
wanna take
you
the
guys
kid.
could, right? You guys could theoretically take these kids. The people that are arguing they should be born no matter what, you could take them if you want them. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that to force these kids to be born to parents that do not want them, when you have a different alternative, especially early on, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it doesn't seem that extreme in the beginning. Of course, the child already being born is a different level of, I would say, a moral
the
conundrum.
development. Ultimately, the question is one of development, and that's what I'm trying to
Yes,
get at.
that's what I'm trying to say. Every single
Tan, then
detour
Pixie,
we
go ahead.
take, every single detour we take is just coming back to the same thing, which is, when do we find that a person is a person? And in my case, what I would actually challenge all of you on is, do we even actually historically care about if something is currently sentient? Or just like in all the 30 million analogies both sides use for abortion, do we always and consistently try to our best to protect the almost sure possibility of future consciousness, which in almost every single case we do? We don't pull the plug on people we know are going to wake up in 2 weeks. Like, we do this consistently. We don't care if someone's sentient now. We care as they are going to be sentient ever. If we can almost guarantee sentience at any point,
not
we
true.
try to
I'm
protect them.
sorry.
In what
I'm
case do we not?
sorry. But
Oh, what a bad time to cut
No, Pixie.
out. I really want to know, because I've never heard somebody make a good
They
argument
took
that
her
they
out
don't care about
the-
future sentience.
The
They always-
valuetainment goons came and got her.
Yeah.
I can make an argument against it. I'm on your side, but I mean, the only argument I've ever heard is the infinite
Hopefully-
regress problem.
Hopefully,
So what's
Pixie
the
comes
sorry?
back soon.
Explain that one to me, because if I haven't heard it, I don't know. I don't know if I've heard it by the title.
Right. Well, infinite regress. So there was a Catholic priest. I don't know if it's an urban legend or if it's real, but like a long time ago, argued that a woman is, like, for however many children a woman could have but doesn't have, she is morally responsible for that many murders.
I mean, that one, no, because you don't have the sureness. So what part of my
Yes, you
thing
do.
is that if you can damn near guarantee that a healthy baby would come out of that every time.
Not every
then-
time, but most of the time. So you can
No,
guarantee a
no,
woman
that's
who
not
is
true.
sexually
Based on the-
active, who is trying to have a baby, right? Who is actively
Sure.
trying to get pregnant. They
Yeah.
are more likely, much more likely, to get pregnant than one who doesn't. And so
not
the
in
fact
every
of
individual sexual encounter. No, they're not.
not every single encounter, but when you
But
take
that's the infinite regress
behavior,
problem.
but I'm expanding it. I'm extending it so it fits.
Well, then
better,
it's
in
not
my
what I'm
opinion.
arguing against.
Well,
then.
let me explain. Give me a second, okay?
Sure.
Pixie's back. Hopefully she'll she'll save me from having to steal, man. Pixie, hello again. You were very passionate, and we were ready for it.
Yeah, no, I'm so okay. That's absolutely not true. If we're gonna say that we care about every potential form of sentience, then we would essentially be trying to legislate against like people people blowing out sperm, essentially, right?
No,
Because
see,
any
again,
no, no, no. Let me finish. Let me
no,
finish,
you're
please.
arguing
But
against
let her finish.
She's
You
getting
went
the
on so
same
well.
core
Go
point
ahead.
wrong. It's going to be a waste of time. It's
Oh,
when we
she
can
may be-
guarantee at about 90% accuracy that it is going to happen.
But we
We'd
can
never.
guarantee a 90% accuracy.
Yes, we
There's
can.
a shit ton of people who have miscarriages. There's a shit ton of people who miscarry and don't even know because they
90%
don't even
of babies-
realize.
Hold on, let
90%
her, let
of
her go
sexually-
without interrupting, please.
Sure.
We'll
Oh,
get you soon. Go ahead,
It's the
Pixie.
same
The
response
point,
and
no,
she's
no,
done.
it's not that. Okay, the point is, just because something can become something doesn't mean we should treat it as it is something. Okay, we don't look at a seed and say, well, we can make it a
Same.
tree, so therefore we should treat it the same as a tree. We don't
We
look
actually
at
do in a
some
lot of
batter.
cases. Yeah.
We don't look at a cake batter and we're like, oh, that's the same thing as a cake. We literally don't. That's not how we interact with physical reality of it.
So
We-
can I respond with the exact same response I was going to have before? A freshly planted farm field, if I go and burn it down, I have to pay damages for every crop that would have been grown from that farm field because yes, we can almost certainly say that again, up to about 90% of those seeds planted are going to bring crop. So what they would do is they would look at what crop yield that farmer got last year with their yield, and you are likely going to have to pay damages relative to what he got last year, even though those weren't the seeds that you just planted. But we are extrapolating that these seeds likely would have had the same outcome as all the seeds before them, and that they would have yielded a crop that you have now damaged them by foregoing for them.
Isn't
Same
there a
thing
difference?
no, I like.
Isn't there a difference between you going out of your way to destroy someone else's shit and someone else destroying their own? Like
No,
someone
because
someone
if
having
you
their own
are the
child.
if you are the seed, then it is your existence that is. It's more important that we
Okay, so what
protect
takes?
this.
Okay, so is that more important than the person holding that child? Is their
No,
right
that's
to
why I
life
said
more important?
no. That's why I said if there's a medical issue that where the mom will die or kid, then you do what you always do, which is you balance the value of each life against the other and who is beholden to who.
Okay, in the absence
Usually
of
in
a
those
medical issue.
no, then there's no right to life question because the woman will live.
In the absence of any threat to the woman's life, does the baby's right to life take priority over the woman's choice to abort the child? In your opinion,
Of course, yeah. Their right to convenience does not supersede somebody else's right to life. I think everybody would agree with that. Not that everyone would agree that it extends to this analogy, but everyone would agree that if a mom just says, "My life would be better if my kid was gone or dead," that you don't just get to kill your kid. You don't get to stop their existence, or you don't get to like throw
So
them
you
into a
think
crack house.
you think the development of a fetus versus a full-born child is? You think the development argument is somehow or another lacking in value? You think that's a pointless argument? to make?
Yes, because I think in almost any case where we are as sure as we are that a child at about 6 weeks gestation after a successful implantation, anytime we have that level of certainty that a child will make it to term, which is about 90% in that case, anytime we extrapolate a person in a coma, if they're 90% likely to wake up in 8 months and you kill them, you're going to get charged for murder. And every analogy that says you would pull the plug on a coma patient, they always say, well, you don't know if they're going to. And I'm saying we do know now.
How is that? And that's
90%.
fair. And that's so. What if the woman's finding out in 6 weeks that she's pregnant? You think that's fair to the woman who might have chosen to have an abortion if she had known earlier? To basically say, well, it's a bit too late for you, so you're just going to carry this one to term, regardless of
100%.
whether she wants that.
Yeah, because
I don't know if that- I
implantation,
don't-
even the implantation of the fetus is still like an 80+% success rate. After the fetus successfully implants in the
Where are you
uterus, you have
getting
like
these
an
stats from?
85+%.
Can you send me these statistics?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was
Because
a
I've seen
yeah.
the rate of
it's from-
miscarriage can go anywhere between like 20 to 30%.
Yeah,
That
but
is
you're not
known
looking at
of known
successfully.
miscarriages.
You're not
Imagine
saying
the amount of
that
women who we don't
includes
even know
non-successfully
miscarried.
Hold on,
implanted
Pixie, your
fetuses.
hold on, Pixie, your camera's not on right now. Just FYI.
Yes. And those include fetuses that were not embryos that were not successfully implanted properly in the uterus. A lot of miscarriages are due to implantation issues in the uterus or the lack of a viable uterus, all that stuff. All of that contributes to those miscarriage statistics. I'm saying successful implantation of a fetus, which you should love because that justifies the federal government saying you can never penalize a woman for a miscarriage. You can never penalize a woman for doing IVF. You can never penalize a woman for taking Plan B because all of those attempt to operate pre-implantation and stop an embryo from implanting in the uterus.
Wait, but you could still have a healthy child that could come to term properly if it's born from rape. So what's the Why are you making an exception for
Because
sexual
I
assault
am
here?
because I am accepting that we need to balance other interests. Rape is a tough one, but it's a legislative compromise I'm willing to make, just like the 8 to 10 week law is the compromise, a legislative compromise I'm willing to make. I don't believe that anything special happens at 8 to 10 weeks. I believe that not everybody in the country is represented by my view, and I live in a democratic republic, and so I'm willing to make a legislative compromise that 8 to 10 weeks is probably one of the better abortion laws for the country. If I was a governor in a state, that is probably what I would push for.
Okay, but you're arguing that the viability of the child takes precedent. So why wouldn't it take
Yes,
precedent over sexual assault in a vacuum? Like let's say
I think it
everybody
does.
agreed with you. You think it
I think,
does.
yeah, I think it
So like
does.
so okay, so like if you didn't have to if you didn't have to make a compromise with the rest of the country, is
Sure.
it fair to say that even in the case of rape, you'd still prioritize the viability of the child over the woman?
Yes, I would prioritize the viability. I still don't know if I wouldn't make an exception in the law, because at that point you're dealing with a consent issue where the entire underlying presupposition for all other cases of abortion are that there was a consensual act that
But
led to that baby being put in
Jebten,
that position of danger.
if I may, um, this is what I hear from the pro-choice side, right? A lot is that these laws, they say they're going to make exceptions. They say they're going to make exceptions for things like rape, incest, etc. The rare, and I admit they are rare cases that they occur. But when we gun down to brass tacks and they get into like, okay, but really, what do you actually want? You're like, well, no, actually, we're going to prioritize viability no matter what, right? That's my thing. So when we talk about what you want, I think it's viable. It's reasonable for people to fear overstep, overzealousness, and that
Yeah,
when
and
it
I
comes
said
to,
there's a justification for
when
federal
it comes
protection
down
against
to
that.
boots on the ground, paper to pen on legislation, that will be the legislation rather than these kind of vacuum theoretical kind of situations. We have seen examples where people who have been raped have been forced by the
Mhm.
law to carry these things to term. And this is a
Sure.
direct result of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which, imperfect though it may be, did stop those cases and allow, again, the exceptions to be taken care of. And that's where I'm worried about. And that's what I'm worried about. But Pixie's back. We're going to toss it to Pixie. Hopefully it
Oh,
works. Please, God, let's not have any more technical issues. Go ahead, Pixie.
I'm sorry. I wanted to Jeb 10 or
Jed, yeah.
whatever. Yeah. To
Jed, whatever
repeat.
you want to say it.
Yeah, I didn't completely hear what you said before when I was asking about the 20 to 30% stat. And you
Yeah.
said, what? Can you repeat what you said there?
So yeah, when you're talking about overall miscarriage stats, you're including a lot of instances of unsuccessful implantation in a healthy uterus. You're dealing with a lot of cases of a non-viable uterus. You're dealing with a lot of cases of like
Yeah,
ectopic
I'm not
pregnancy, implanting in a
sure.
fallopian tube. You're getting a lot because looking at New England Journal of Medicine, time of implantation of the conceptus and loss of pregnancy, it looks like
Yeah, just
out
if
of
you can send me the numbers, it would be
yeah,
appreciated.
sure.
Because from what I'm seeing is that like there are cases like that, but there's also well, technically, yeah, miscarriages are a result of the fetus or whatever not properly developing in the uterus, and the uterus essentially like, forcibly expelling it. It doesn't make it any less of a miscarriage.
Mhm.
What I'm trying to say or what I'm trying to convey is this the idea that it's like, oh no, it's like basically going to be a baby when there seems to be like pretty substantial amount of like miscarriages leads to doubt that we should treat it the same thing as a potential baby. Or as a literal baby, just
I mean,
because it
even though
potentially
even
could be
your
one.
best numbers say it's like a 20% rate. We're so
My best numbers say
80% certain.
30%. So that's like
Sure.
and
So
that's known.
70% certain that what do you mean known?
Well, it means that a lot of people have miscarriages, but they don't realize it's a miscarriage.
Okay,
What
but they're
they
not gonna have
pe-
an abortion on a baby they don't know that they have. So
Well,
that's not
but
really
that's
part of the
you're
conversation.
missing
We're
the
talking
point.
about known
That
fetuses.
you're or I'm not conveying the point, you're missing the point because the point that I'm trying to get across is that this rate might actually be higher, but the person didn't realize it's a miscarriage. They thought it was just like a late period or an unusually heavy period or something.
Sure.
So again, that goes back to the previous point where you're like, oh no, we basically should treat it as a baby because the rate is so high, it might as well be one, which again doesn't follow. Just because something might happen doesn't mean it currently is. And then second of
Mhm.
all, the numbers that you're saying, at least from what I'm seeing right now, which is why I would like to see where you're getting your stuff from, um, implies that no, it's not as clear cut. Regardless of
Mhm.
that, stepping away from that for a second, when it comes to this whole idea of like, oh, oh, you had sex, so therefore you are basically consenting to having a potential child. I'm
Mhm.
not sure if I completely buy that. Sexual education, especially in the United States, is pretty bad. Like literally, there are people, children specifically, who will have sex, not even realize what they're completely doing, and then oh, what happens? Pregnancy. Not a lot of people realize, especially in like lower income areas, because of poor sex ed, the actions that they're doing to and full result that it'll lead to, which is why in areas where you have higher rates of sexual education, you have lower rates of teen pregnancy. So
Sure,
once
but
again,
again, I'm leaning on a legal system where we charge children differently than adults. We charge people who can clearly show that they didn't intend to commit a crime differently than people who did clearly intend to commit a crime. I know that our legal system already accounts for these things. So I'm saying there should still be a charge for it because I trust our justice system to evaluate somebody's knowingness and their level of intent when they're trying a crime because they always do it and we do it all the time.
what I'm saying is that you're essentially forcing people to take consequence for an action that they didn't consent to, right? Your whole basis here is like, oh no, they said that, like they had sex, so that basically means that they knew they could potentially have a child. Well, I'm
Yes.
saying there's a shit ton of cases where that's not even the case, where they
One, I
don't know
would
what they're doing
one,
with
I
these
would challenge
children.
you on what a shit ton
So,
means, and then
Brittany
two, I'm
Simon, thank you for the
acknowledging.
rain. Okay.
So, and
have
two,
fun.
I'm acknowledging that even in those cases, our legal system knows how to evaluate for those things, and so they
So-
will.
So what
Okay,
would they ask? Would they ask like, "Hey, did you guys want to have the kid or some shit?"
I mean, it'll be the lawyer's job. It's why we all have a right to a lawyer. It'll be the job of a defense lawyer, of which I'm sure Lactoid knows many, to affirmatively make the argument. My client did not have access to proper sexual education. They didn't understand the likelihood, or they thought that a pullout was going to be enough. They're just a kid, and they're gonna plea for leniency. They're gonna plea for maybe a suspension of a
Doesn't this
sentence
seem
that
like
they might
But you
get.
know,
It is how our legal system works.
Yeah,
It's
but
not
doesn't this
unusual.
seem
Every adult should know that sex leads to pregnancy.
Yes,
I
and every
Based on what
understand,
adult.
we-
but
Yes.
but
yeah,
we're not just talking about, again, I understand you for the 90, 80%, whatever number you want to use, but we're talking about the outliers here. And I'm just imagining a scenario where you have children having to stand up before a court of law, risking in some cases years in prison, right? Because they had an abortion, or having to have a child that they weren't ready for when they didn't understand what was happening to them, and having them
Mhm.
to rely on the fact that they can get a good lawyer just means that we're going to have two classes of people. We're going to have the rich, who've always gotten abortions, always been able to take care of these things, always been able to get
Not
out
under my
of all
system,
these
they wouldn't.
consequences. And then you'll have the public defenders. No shade to public defenders. They do a lot of good work, but they're overworked, underpaid, just not a good option. They're going to be suffering the consequences of people who
Sure.
can't afford the good lawyers.
Then
So while
let's
yes, I
this
do trust our justice system, I recognize also that it has its flaws, and this is one of them. And I can't imagine a scenario where we're coming in and we're making a 13-year-old kid
so I'm
stand
getting
in
increasingly
and risk
frustrated
this.
with these paper tiger arguments because if I said fine, we make exceptions for medical cases, rape cases, incest cases, and children cannot be penalized, both of these people would still disagree with it.
because
So
the
it's a paper tiger argument. We don't
this
actually care about this. This is a justification for literally allowing children to never get charged for anything because they never know what they're doing and there's always a possibility. And I don't want to see a kid who accidentally tripped over and discharged his firearm and shot somebody to go to jail for manslaughter. Like, yes, I can think of ridiculous cases that I wouldn't want to see happen. That's not a justification for throwing out a law that would protect children in 90+ % of cases.
I think it's like almost the definition of like moving the goalposts, right? Because the actual, again, when you look at the actual motivation that people get abortion, it's because they want to keep their jobs or they want to advance in their career. And so, unless you address that issue, right, people are going to be in favor of abortion because that's why they get it. So, you can talk, you're going to bring up the rape example, you're going to bring up, well, what about the kids? Like classic kind of like cycling through, and then you can address every single one. Okay, like my personal position is I think that anybody under the age of 18 should be able to get an abortion without the same kind of time limitations that I would put for adults, right? Because children can't consent to
Yeah.
taking on duties in ways that adults
Can
can.
you point to me a law that exempts children in this way? I can't. I can point to you laws that don't, that hold children responsible to these paper tiger arguments that you're saying that we're just making these things up aren't being made up. There's actual examples of this that we can
It's
point
not
to.
paper tiger doesn't mean you're making it up necessarily. It means that you're allowing it, you're acting as though it is a bigger part of your argument and you think it is. Whereas if I conceded right now what 𝕉𝖃 just did, we would still have 2 more hours of debate on how we should treat the 99% of cases that happen in adults. My issue is 𝕉𝖃 is saying he would be for a unique exception here because there aren't many other things that we literally say children can't consent to. Like murder isn't a consent issue. Drug trafficking isn't a consent issue. And where it is, where it seems as though a child has been forced to do something by a parent, they do get off. So I would be favorable probably after some time with thinking about it and chewing on it, with agreeing with 𝕉𝖃 that maybe kids are just exempt from this due to our already legally recognized kind of inability to consent for minors.
To be clear, the reason why I would exempt minors is because I believe in greater time thresholds for rape victims, and I believe that anybody under the age of 18 who's pregnant has by definition been a rape victim.
Oh, okay. We're
Sure.
not going to go down that
Okay,
rabbit hole.
okay.
I'm going to pass it
No,
to
I think
Rashad
that's
and
like-
see.
I think that's a
Because
strong
because
point.
because children can't consent, right? So if a child
Yeah.
is pregnant, that means she was raped.
Yeah.
The crux of the argument that we're not acknowledging is that people who are not a member of a family of this individual, a person who is not possessing of the body of this individual, is determining and dictating the fate of this person and their child. And that's
They're
exactly
advocating
what's
on
happening
behalf
here.
of someone who
You
can't
know,
advocate
you
for
have you
themselves.
still have to take into account that this is not your child, this is not your family, and this is not you. This is not your body. You are
No, I don't. The
overstepping
state
on
has
some
an
level.
interest.
You are, regardless of what the state says, you, by advocating for this, are overstepping someone's rights, someone's privacy, a family, their child, that woman's body. This has nothing to do with you specifically. Now, you do acknowledge that on some level, because I keep hearing you guys say it all comes down
So I
to,
can't
you know, it
acknowledge
all comes down to
overstepping on
development.
some
It all
level.
comes down to development, but your argument also comes down to overstepping the boundaries of your own privacy. You're going into other
No.
people's families and dictating who will or won't be. You are.
No, I agree with the Supreme Court decision that this has nothing to do with the right to privacy, the same way that if someone took a child into their home, as
How does it
𝕉𝖃
not?
said,
Because the law doesn't say
I was
so.
about
It
to
doesn't
explain
change
it.
the fact.
Just like if someone pulled their own child into their home, locked all the doors, and started smashing fucking Marlboro Reds right next to them. Sure, I don't have the right to violate their privacy, but I still have the right to advocate for a child that isn't mine.
The
Just like
problem
if
is
there's
that's
someone
not
in
the
a coma.
exact same thing. You're
Just-
unwilling to acknowledge that there's multiple aspects to an argument. You're trying to
Yeah, but you're
okay,
saying
well,
I'm
if I can just
overstepping.
like cut it off from like right here and make your entire argument about this, it's an entire constellation of things that comes together to
No,
make up
you're
the
making,
argument.
you're saying affirmatively, I am overstepping someone's right to privacy. I'm saying demonstrate that.
Can I cut in for a second?
Please.
How does that require a demonstration if it's not your child, it's not you, and it's not your family? What
What
more do I need
laws
to
do
demonstrate?
what laws
Okay.
are we only
I'm not.
allowed
It,
to?
it doesn't need. It doesn't
What laws
require
are
a
we
law for
only-
you to know. Does it require a law for you to know and understand? It's not your child. It's not your family, and it's not your body. Is it
In what
something
law
you
does
can't
that matter?
acknowledge? Yes or not? What do
In
you
what
mean?
law
Why
does
does
that
that not
matter?
matter? Because in the
No, in
context,
what
what does it mean
law
the
does
law?
that matter?
Why does it require a law for you to accept and understand? That's
No.
what you're doing.
You're telling me I shouldn't advocate for strict abortion laws because it's not my kid. I'm asking you, what other laws should I not advocate for because they don't personally affect
Because
me?
there's
Should I
a
not advocate
context
for
for why
minimum wage?
there's a
because I
context
don't
for
make
why the
minimum wage?
privacy. There's a context for why the privacy matters more.
Okay.
No, but
Would you
that's
agree? Would you
your-
agree? Yes or no?
We're
No,
circling the
that's
drain.
your-
We're
No,
circling
that's
the
your
drain.
subjective valuation of the.
I'm
I want
gonna
to cut in for a
privacy
second.
yeah,
doesn't
I'm gonna
currently
pass it to
exist in law.
Pixie. Maybe Pixie can get us out of this. I don't know. We'll find out.
Well, no, maybe I'll get.
This is the conversation, though. This is the meat of the
No,
conversation.
you're saying that what I'm saying is essentially a paper tiger. What I'm saying like isn't the majority of like cases, blah blah blah. And what I'm trying to say is that there is an underlying principle between the cases I have brought to you and the cases when it comes to a woman who wants to have a career, who wants to who wants to like pursue a different livelihood or whatever, and a child will get in the way. And is that it seems like in a lot of cases you're forcing people to have consequences for things that they did not originally consent to. I don't believe having sex is immediately consenting to being pregnant. Okay, that's why people use protection, and people still protection fails. It's not perfect. So this idea that's like, oh no, well, like, you had sex, and that's like that's a potential consequence of sex. It's not always a consequence of sex. A lot of people have sex and never have children. A lot of people have sex, end up being infertile, end up having miscarriages, don't end up having children. So to say like, oh no, like this automatically means that you have consented, whether you knew it or not somehow, to having a child, I think is a way overstepping a bounds of logic.
It's just not, because if you give a child something they can hurt themselves with, you know that even if you know 90% of the time, when I take my child out to the shooting range, nothing happens, and your child hurts themselves by negligently discharging a firearm, you as a parent are held responsible for that,
Wait, I'm
because
sorry.
you
Are you
are
comparing
consenting to
having
the
sex
percent
to a child
chance that
having a
someone gets hurt.
firearm?
Oh my gosh,
No,
you
I
are
mean
not.
this.
You are so resistant to you guys are so resistant to
No,
analogies.
I love
What I'm saying
analogies. I
is,
just don't understand your analogy. That's why I'm
so
asking you to
the core concept of what you just said was that because they don't know for a fact they're going to get pregnant 100% of the time, they're not consenting to pregnancy when they have sex. What I'm saying is, I believe in the principle of informed consent. Widely available are the stats of all the different forms of contraception, and every adult has access to those statistics. They all have given informed consent to the possibility of getting pregnant when they have sex, protected or not.
Okay, what I'm saying is that even if you know that a potential consequence of having sex is pregnancy, that doesn't necessarily mean you have consented to the pregnancy. Okay,
Yes, it
I
does.
know a potential consequence of me driving a
That's
car
insane.
is that I might hit someone. That does not mean I actually consent to hitting somebody with my car. So saying like, hey, like, this might be a possibility that happens here does not mean that you're actually like consenting to wanting to have that happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Okay,
You
if it,
hitting
if it
someone
does make
does
sense, don't
you
do
if you willfully do something, even if it's slightly
Willful implies
accidental.
consent, G. Willful implies
If you hit
consent.
someone with
The
your
argument
car,
she's making is that it's not willful. What if you accidentally somehow hit someone with your car?
consent,
Are you waking up in the
yes,
morning like,
you
man, I
consensually
really
hit
do
someone with your car.
agree. That's insane. Okay, so if a woman,
Consent does
okay,
not
so
imply
okay.
willful
So if a
intent
woman,
always, no.
if a woman is having sex with a man and the condom breaks and they don't want to have a child, but they're taking the
Mhm,
steps necessary to avoid that, they have consented to
mhm.
having a child.
Yes, if you
And you
partake
think
in
this is
sexual
right?
intercourse,
Do you think this makes any logical sense?
yeah, because
You
you
think
are
you could apply this to like law?
yes, you are conflating. Yes, we apply this to law in every case. We apply this to law. In every single
We
case.
do make distinctions between uh willful and
Yes.
negligent and things, but they are
Exactly, yeah.
different and they are
Yeah,
treated
and I'm
different.
making that distinction. He is not. He is saying willful is the same thing as consent. I am saying consent and willful intent are two different things. Consent is the absence of coercion, and your proactive engaging in an act that you know can lead to certain externalities. Willful intent for one of those externalities to happen is different, but the charge isn't getting pregnant. The charge is having the abortion.
And you believe that somehow having the abortion at what cutoff point is murder? You believe that even at the point of conception,
For
it
me
would be
personally, no, not
basically murder.
For
conception.
you
For me
personally, is
personally,
Plan B?
implantation.
Implantation.
So
You're
Plan
really
is
gonna
Plan
look at me
B?
in the eyes and
So
say,
like the
yeah.
moment
Yeah, implantation in the uterus. Implantation in a healthy uterus.
It's
That
the
is
same
when
thing
that is
as
the
a
only.
human being.
we're in here with a literal pilgrim.
No, it
Okay,
is.
we're in here with an actual
Again,
like
none
Quaker.
of you have
This
argued.
is a
It is deserving of.
Quaker.
No,
We
sorry.
are in here with a Quaker.
Sure, you can continue talking over me because I've made a very sound point. I'm not saying it is the
No,
same person
keep
as a human
going.
being. I'm not saying it's the same person as a human being. I'm saying it is deserving of the same protection as a human being because in every similar case where we have a similar level of certainty that a human life will either return or exist, we protect it.
Isn't
Okay.
there more of
And
a
you
nuance here?
cannot show me one where we don't. And if you can do it,
it seems
show
like
the
there's
pilgrim.
isn't there nuance for why we make exceptions for abortion? The nuance of the woman
Yes.
wanting the child?
No, that
Isn't
is
that
not.
no?
No.
Do you think that shouldn't play any factor
Whether a
in
parent
somebody?
wants their child never bears any even slight impact on their
The nuance of an
in
unborn
any
child
form of
at might be
abuse
like
against
the
the child.
nuance of an unborn child at 6 weeks and an
Mhm.
actual 8-year-old girl or
Yeah.
boy. You think there is no difference in there's no moral difference in someone saying, hey, this isn't even born yet. This baby won't even feel pain yet. I can kill this. Let's call it what it
I'll
is. I can
reiterate
kill
this.
this, and
I'll
it's
reiterate-
morally different. The problem is you're trying to make it all the same.
No, you're not. No, you're not listening to me. I'm not.
No, you
I
are.
never
You
said-
literally are. Okay,
so let me not explain how I'm not. But okay.
every time you come up with an example for why it's wrong, you bring up the idea of killing an actual kid or endangering an actual
Because that's the
developed
only
child.
thing that will get you guys to understand it. You guys are refusing to give.
No,
babysitters
because you're
before,
trying
so
to equate the
forcing me
two. You're trying to equate
I'm
the two.
trying
You're
to-
trying to
Every time
separate
you
the
interrupt me,
nuances and the
every time you
differences
interrupt me,
to
it's
make
like
a
you're
point.
killing a child. Every time you guys interrupt me and interrupt each other, you're killing a child. It's
Sure,
pretty
can
much
I
the same
reiterate
thing.
what
You're
I've actually
aborting a line of
said that he is
conversation
telling
like
me
you're
I
doing
didn't
now.
say?
You're aborting a line of conversation that might have led to everyone getting pregnant. Pixie, go ahead.
Okay.
Keep telling me
Um,
what I argued that isn't at all what I argued.
Well, okay, Jeb, the problem here is that you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to be truthful to your argument.
If I'm
You're
allowed to.
saying, we might as well treat it as a child because there's a 90% chance that it might be a child, even though
No.
we both have different stats on that. I'm
No,
saying
so we
that
should. I didn't say we should treat it exactly as a child. I said
we should do
it
it
deserves the same baseline protection of life as a child. That doesn't mean the charge is exactly the same. That doesn't mean the morality of it is exactly the same, but that they both meet that baseline stance for protected life. That is it. So no, I'm not saying it's exactly the same or that we should charge it exactly the same, but there should be a charge because it is still a life that is worth protecting.
Okay, essentially, when you're saying like, oh, the baseline protection,
Yeah.
I think that's where it comes to the basic disagreement or the most vital disagreement. Because what I'm saying is that to me, I would not say that classifies as baseline protection. to me, to have a baseline protection of how we should treat all human beings would imply like some level of essentially like consciousness,
It
essentially.
doesn't. It doesn't because if
Well,
someone is completely unable to respond in the hospital, but you know for a fact, even 70%, I'll give you the best possible number that I've not seen anywhere. I will give you your 70%. You know, this person is 70% likely to wake up in 8 months and you kill them, you shoot them in their hospital bed, you will go to jail even though they
the
are not
difference
currently conscious.
The difference between these two examples is one has already exhibited consciousness,
No,
right?
not at all because you can
Yes,
shoot a
a
dead
person,
body.
wait, let me finish, please. A person who ends up going to the hospital or whatever has previously, as you can see in their past 70 years or whatever of life, has shown to be able to be fully capable of consciousness. When we
Why
are
does that
looking
matter?
with, because I would say that life or our understanding of what a human being is intrinsically tied to active consciousness
Sure.
or
No, it's
proof of
not.
consciousness.
Exactly, right? So how sure we are that they will be conscious when they wake
No,
up
it's not
is
how
what
sure they are
matters.
that they will be conscious. It's that they
Yes.
have already established the
Yes.
consciousness.
So why
This
does
is the
that
main
matter when
thing.
they are not conscious anymore, right? Why does that
No,
matter? Because if you shoot a dead
you're
body,
not
you're not killing
understanding what I'm
anything.
saying. No. You
I'm
are. I'm
super
telling you,
understanding what you're saying.
there's a difference between somebody who has established consciousness, loses it, and then regains it, right? Or
Why?
there's a possibility of regaining.
Why?
Keyword
Why? But
regaining
why? Why?
versus somebody or some, I guess not even somebody because I wouldn't consider somebody something that never got consciousness to begin
Wait,
with.
Lactoid,
Maybe in the
I love this
Well,
future.
argument.
I'm gonna basically go down
It's
the
not
exact same
just
line
it's
that
not
you
just
are.
the
Yeah.
fact that it could have consciousness in the future. It's also the fact that it already had
Well,
consciousness.
hold
in
on,
the
wait, so
past.
this is
You
the
can't
question.
split
The
it off.
question.
You can't split it off to what it could
the question
have.
he's
It's
asking-
also the fact of what it did have.
The
No,
question. The question that he's asking is the definition that was just given by Pixie, well, like active consciousness. That doesn't actually apply to past consciousness. Why does past consciousness matter whatsoever? You're just asserting it, right? What Jeptan's saying is that, like, sure, we can talk about active consciousness potentially or future consciousness, right? Because we value the thing that's happening now, and like we want to ensure that this thing that we value could happen in the future. But if it's already happened in the past, why is that valuable whatsoever?
Because proof of past consciousness is basically proof of humanity. It's basically proof of being a human being.
no,
That's
no.
why.
So here's no.
Wait,
let me-
Yes,
hold on,
why
real
you're
quick,
not
wait,
human
I want to stick on this. Past proof of past consciousness is proof of humanity. What does that mean?
It essentially means that if I believe humanity starts at consciousness, right? Anything before then is not really human to me. I don't really consider it the same moral weight as I would consider a human being. So you have to have a level of consciousness, or the consciousness must begin for me to be like, okay, that is a human life worth,
Let me do some quick hits.
protecting.
Yeah. So
If I may.
real quick, at most you could prove past humanity. Then that doesn't get us to active humanity if they're
Yes.
not conscious now.
Can I please do some quick?
That's the point. The point is like, oh no, there is already an established level of humanity there. That is where I would
There
establish it.
was
where
an
we can
established level of
ask for
humanity.
protection.
So, Pixie, do you think me shooting a dead person, a confirmed dead person's corpse, is more or less morally bad than abortion, or equal?
More or less, okay. Again, abortion.
Is it more murder or less murder?
If we're talking about abortion at conception, I would say it's the same.
At implantation,
same
it's
thing.
exactly the same. So,
That's true, yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
so it's not less, right? So it doesn't matter that that person used to be alive because the fetus didn't used to be
No,
alive,
because they're
but
not
they're
gaining
equal to
any
you.
chance of consciousness again.
No, yes, exactly. That's my point. You only care about past consciousness as it informs the likelihood of future consciousness.
But we
So
only
future
care about
consciousness
future
is what matters.
consciousness
But-
if there is confirmed evidence that there was past consciousness.
But
like,
why?
This
No,
could
that-
become
but
conscious
why?
at any point. It's
That
possible.
was conscious
No.
at hold on.
But
You
it's
could
very
argue-
fucking
no,
unlikely.
hold
No, you can argue
This is
that
this
the
is a flaw in
coal-
your argument, though,
Oh,
right?
No,
like this
no,
idea.
no,
if I
you
may,
can argue that
hold on.
the
coal.
If I may, gang, you guys have been talking all day. It's my turn to talk.
I
just
have
a
not
little.
been talking.
You're
You
a
haven't.
moderator.
You haven't.
Your
I am,
job-
but I want to talk to. Have you not seen my show? Have you not watched WhickTV before? You know how I do. Okay,
I
but this is
know,
a
but-
flaw in the discussion here. Is
Then
if
let me
you
address it.
have like the reason we care about future consciousness is because they have established that they were conscious in the past. Now I have a
No,
problem
what?
with Pixie's
No.
argument too, which I want to ask her about too, because when we talk about these levels of consciousness, we could make the argument that a 2-month-old doesn't have the same consciousness as a 20-year-old. They're different. They respond to the world differently. They're not. Are they really conscious? I don't know.
Wait, can we finish there and like not addressing my point first before we jump into a new
we
one?
keep addressing it. You just don't like the
no,
addressing.
No, it's not. We don't like it. It's that you guys are wrong. She already admitted that she doesn't. She cares equally about me shooting someone who used to be conscious as she does about me aborting someone who was never conscious. So it's clear that the past consciousness in isolation is not what matters, and it's definitely not the reason we care about future consciousness. It's the opposite. We only care about past
Oh.
consciousness as it informs future consciousness. That's why she thinks that me shooting a dead person is the same as aborting a fetus that was never conscious, because it ceases to matter whether or not something used to be conscious if it's not informing their likelihood of future consciousness.
What I'm saying essentially is that when it comes to the whole question of, again, oh, this person might revive or whatever, then okay, is there an established consciousness that already happened? If there was never an established consciousness that happened, then I don't give a fuck because they're not human. Okay, like,
because you don't know.
Jeb,
saying
you got to let me
this
address
model might somehow
Maybe I can reach
magically
them.
develop consciousness. It hasn't right now. I have no proof or evidence that it is, so I'm not going to treat it as such. Just because something has
Okay.
a potentiality of developing conscious. Okay, if you guys are
Okay. Well, this is the again. You went right back to the trope of, well, this informs whether or not it might become conscious in the future. What Jeb's trying to say, we understand your argument. What you guys are saying is we only care about future consciousness if you can prove past consciousness, right? That's your argument. And what Jeb is saying and what I'm saying is, why does it fucking matter whatsoever whether or not something had past consciousness? That's the past. It's over, right?
It's not over.
In term, well, by definition, if it was, it is now over, right? The temporalness
No,
of it is.
there's a difference between someone having a temporary cease of consciousness that could be brought back. When someone comes back, are they automatically losing? Do they lose all memory? Yes or no?
So you're talking
It's not
about
really over.
no.
No, it's
You're
not
talking.
really
You're
over,
talking.
is it?
You're talking about
It's
whether
not
it
really
can,
over, is
you
it?
can just hold on. If you can bring something back, that means that now it is over, right? Because that's what bringing it back means. The word "was" means not is. It means was. It means in the
You
past.
said
So
it
you
wouldn't
have a-
be
yeah, you
anymore.
have-
Great things happening on
You
WhickTV.
Yes,
used
by
the word
definition.
anymore.
Right, the word
But
"was"
we
by
know that the
definition means not anymore.
Yeah,
Okay,
what does
would you like
temporary
to
imply?
surrender that? Temporary
No.
implies that it's not completely gone. It
Well,
can
and
be back.
by the way,
No.
no, Jeb, wait. Does this mean that if I have like a flash drive that I can plug into a brain that has memories, and then I will plug it in to like a fetus, then now it's like currently conscious? Because it's got memories now that
Hold on.
own it or that are there's attached
Well,
to it,
let
and
me
then it's
ask
going to
you, Lactoid.
regain those memories.
Let me
when it gets
ask you,
born.
Lactoid. We have a robot which could potentially be implanted with a human consciousness and a human soul. If I destroy that robot,
Soul?
should it be illegal or immoral? I haven't implanted
So-
it with anything yet. I haven't put in those memories, but I could. It's possible. It has a potentiality that I could put it in. Should
the
it be
reason-
illegal to destroy that robot?
Yeah, the reason why, like, I'm gonna say it shouldn't be illegal is because, like, I, on a presuppositional basis, only value human life, specifically persons, which means that I don't care. The robot could be conscious, and I would still think it should be legal to kill it. I rooted for the humans in the movie Avatar. The blue aliens should have like bowed down to us. I'm dead serious about this. So this goes into a totally different fucking realm that it's going to be like a waste of time to get into. But what Jeb is saying is that like Was is not is. If something was conscious, now you're saying, well, what if there's like a bank of memories that when the consciousness regains or gains, then it can access that bank of memories. Well, that doesn't really work because we could find an artificial way to have memories banked for a fetus for when the fetus gets born, but that wouldn't change your argument about whether or not the fetus is currently experiencing consciousness, right? Just because you were experiencing consciousness has nothing to do with whether or not you are experiencing consciousness or whether or not you will again
Should
in the
it be
future
illegal?
or will for the first time in
Even
the
still,
future.
even still, the priority would still remain with the original person, because that's not even that fetus's actual consciousness. It's someone else's memories put inside of it. So even then, that's not even really still the person.
Why
You've
does
taken
that
that person's
matter?
personhood. That definitely matters. If you take someone's personhood, put it inside of a fetus, you've basically taken that entire person's life.
No,
The
just their
reason why we don't
memories.
treat it that is their humanity and their life and their consciousness in and of itself. That's the person. If you take my memories and put it inside of a baby, you've taken basically because on top of that, my body is an extension of myself. You've basically taken my life and given it to something else. You've on some
No.
level
And that's a
robbed someone
very
of their
deep
life.
philosophical
There's
question.
more to
It's
your
not
person.
philosophical at all.
There's more to
There
your
is-
person than just memories. Okay. First of all, and then here's the kicker. This
The
is where wait. This is where you lose. What about somebody who goes into a coma and then loses all their memories? Are they not conscious anymore? Or can you kill them while they're in a
But
coma?
are they the
Because
same
now
person?
Now they have memory loss. Yeah, they have memory loss though, so they have no memories.
But are
Now
they
they're
the same
basically
person
vegans, right?
after that?
There's more
That's
to
a
there's
good
more to a
question.
person
No,
than just
they have
memories.
no memories. They have no memories at all.
And they're not
you just said
conscious
there's
right
more to
now.
a person than just their memories, right?
You don't know. You
Wait,
don't
hold
know.
on.
There is
Wait,
more to a
wait.
person. There is more to a person than just
Okay.
more makes up your consciousness than just memories. You have predisposition, personality. You have personality differences, all sorts of stuff that makes up who you are than just your
Yeah,
memory.
but everybody has like their own personality. Well, first of all, that was my point that now you're
You gotta
co-opting.
yell over the men.
Pixie, throw some bows, yell. Throw some bows.
I
You brought up this new
understand.
example.
Hold on. I understand that people have like personality traits
Okay.
and predisposition. Hold on, wait, please. I understand that people have personality traits and predispositions and et cetera, et cetera. But what you are arguing is that the reason why past consciousness matters whatsoever is because there's this like bank of memories. Because without that bank of memories, every person's still going to have different personality predispositions. But if you have somebody who goes into a coma, let's say they get hit by a car, now they're in a coma, and they also suffer from like long and short-term memory loss where they don't have that bank of memories, should I be able to go shoot this person?
Can I cut in?
Hold on. Well, never
Yes,
mind.
yes, you
No.
can, because that's you can answer yes or no real quick if you want, Rashad, but go ahead, Pixie.
Basically what I was about to establish is, to me, consciousness is not just memories. Consciousness is the ability to like actively experience, right? Part of that is memory, but it's not only memory. So that's why when you're saying like, oh, if I implant the memories of somebody into like a fetus or something, that seems very I guess not in tune with reality. My first instinct was like, well, if you're basically implanting consciousness, and then yeah, like there's actually a moral argument there. But then my second reaction was like, well, consciousness isn't just memory. It's the ability to have like an active, like lived experience. So the best way I'm going to communicate to you guys about why past consciousness matters is because I'm gonna bring it back to the cake analogy. Let's say I define a cake when, or maybe bread. I'll use bread because I know more about bread. When the yeast rises, okay? And anything before that is not really bread. It's just like, it's cooking, it's like, it's still like yeast or whatever, but it's not, the yeast has not risen yet. So to me, it is not bread. So before that, I would not consider it bread. So that's why it for me matters. Because if I'm going to define humanity or what a human person is, a human being is, having some level of consciousness is it. Anything before that is just cells to me. It doesn't really speak to the human existence or experience.
Let me address the bread comparison real quick. If I eat a piece of bread, okay, I can agree with you. Like it's bread. Like at some point we both agree it's bread. If I eat the piece of bread and then like I take a shit and then I use that shit as fertilizer to grow wheat to make more bread, is it still bread while it's my shit? Because it was bread, and now it's going to become bread in the future. But right now, while it's my shit, is it still bread?
Okay, the answer to that is obviously no.
Why not? It was bread and is going to be bread. So why isn't it bread now?
Well, because it literally went through like chemical decomposition. Like when we
It's
look
different,
at
right?
Well, yeah, it's chemically completely different. The example you used was a person in a fucking
But why does that
coma.
matter if it being
Hold
bread
on.
before is what matters?
This
Bread is
goes
compared to
against
consciousness
your
here.
argument, Lactoid. because
at
you would
all.
say that the
0.
shit that you are making has a possibility to one day be bread in the future, so you should treat it as bread.
No, because
that's the point of the
no,
argument.
no,
Hold
no,
on,
wait,
let's get
wait.
back to the. Let's
That's not
get
my
back
argument.
to
That's not
it.
my argument.
Let's
That's
get
not my
back
argument.
to it.
Are you
Let's
saying
get back to
that's-
the original
Wick.
reason we're here, because we're going into hypothetical land.
That's not.
We're
that's a
talking
straw
about
man.
abortion, and the
Well,
argument that
there's a straw
Jeff
man.
Dan at
I've
least
got a-
has
I've
been
got a-
making.
That was
No,
Jeb.
it's a
That
straw
was Jeb. That
As
wasn't me.
Jeff
No, I
Dan has
said
been
a
making
high level of
has been
certainty.
that because it will one day become a person that it
What
should be
percentage of-
entitled to these basic
Wick,
protections.
what percentage of bread shits become bread?
I don't know, but if it's greater than
Not-
70%, if it's greater
Yeah.
than 70%, in your argument, you would
Wait, yes.
consider we should
If
treat
I
it as
put-
bread.
Hold on. Yeah, if I put
You
my
should
shit
eat
in the
bread.
ground.
You-
No, hold on. You agree with me.
So if
put my
I
shit-
put my shit that I
Wick,
ate
stop
bread
interrupting
and I
the
baked it
people who
into
you're
a
arguing against.
pie as the bread
If
crust, the
I
bready bread
put-
crust,
if- I'm
you,
gonna
under
keep
your
saying that,
argument, that would be the
If I
same,
put
and
my
nothing should
shit-
happen to me.
If I put my shit in the ground to grow more wheat to make more bread, and you again burn down my field, even though all that is there right now is shit, you have to pay me for the bread I was going to make with that shit. Because once I've put it in the ground, it projects a certain level of certainty of future breadness. So you have to pay me for the damages of the
Okay,
bread that I
Jeb,
lost for burning down
I have
that
a
field.
very easy
Just
question. I have a
like
very simple
when
question.
someone is in a coma, just because they were in the past conscious, if we're pretty certain they're not going to be, we can pull the plug. But if we know they're going to be, you don't get to just pull the plug on them if they have an advance directive not to, or if there's no advance directive at all, you don't get to just pull the plug on someone that you're 70% sure is going to wake up in 8 months. You just
Jeb,
don't.
I have a question.
I didn't,
know,
I didn't
I'm
clarify
asking a
my
question.
position
It's a very
because
simple
Wick
question.
misstated
No,
my
let me
position.
finish
I want to
the question.
clarify.
I
Let me
promise
finish
you'll
the
get a
question,
chance,
then
but go
you
ahead.
guys
Jeb.
can talk.
Okay, I need to clarify because
Wait,
people think I'm
yeah,
crazy now.
actually, please, I'm begging you. Let me finish the question. I just have a very simple question. Jen,
Sure.
would you eat the shit?
Would I eat the shit? No, because I don't think it's the same. You guys have been telling me I'm saying it's exactly the same as bread right now. I'm saying it has offered the same baseline protection in the law as what it is going to become once it reaches a certain level of certainty that it is going to become that.
But
You
clear-
understand? You're head scratching because it's a hard thing to get
you
around,
clearly-
and you can't
clearly
think of a
accept
new
that the
straw
thing
man for it.
doesn't mean it is.
That's
Like,
yes, that's
what-
you. You're the one saying that because it was, it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
You're the one
Lactoid,
no,
Lactoid,
Okay.
clarify.
Let me
said
clear
that they
clear
are
up
human
my
now.
position. Let me be clear up my position because my position is that I actually don't value potential life because of the infinite regress problem. If it is a person now, then I value it, and then when it's no longer a person, I have no value of it whatsoever. So in the poop example, I do not like, regardless of whether or not the poop was bread, I would not eat it. I don't value it whatsoever. It's poop, right? And you can tell me that it might become bread in the future. I still don't care. It's poop. So my position's actually very consistent on this. But what you guys are saying is that, well, if it was bread and it will be bread, then it also is kind of bread now. But it's not. Like, if it was conscious and it will be conscious, then it is conscious now. That's not necessarily true. It's unconscious right now.
Yeah, no, but the example that you gave was that it will be conscious again. That it was conscious. It's in a weird middle state or whatever, and then it's going to regain it. And then
This
No,
is the
not-
weakness. This is the weakness of valuing. This is the weakness of valuing consciousness, by the way. Because if you
No,
value
so-
consciousness, then I mean, honestly, I feel like as though you should be allowed to kill sleeping people or people in comas. I don't value consciousness. Even if you're unconscious, if you're a human being, I'm not going to kill you.
And for me, that's not even the analogy I was making. I was saying you don't know in the future if that person is going to be conscious until you really get into the nitty gritty. And in the cases in which we know they are likely not going to regain consciousness, we don't care that they were in the
Yep,
past because it doesn't inform future consciousness.
No,
So
when
we
you-
can pull the plug. But when the past consciousness does inform that they will be conscious again, in the case like they are wiggling their fingers or they did mumble somebody's name, we know they are going to be conscious in the future, then we can't pull the plug because the only time we care about past consciousness is when it informs future consciousness.
So
That
let's
is
talk
the-
about future consciousness for a moment. So Jeptan,
Yeah.
and engage with the hypothetical, please. So, okay, we know in this hypothetical scenario that my partner, my wife, girlfriend, whatever, right? If I have sex with her
Mhm.
and I cream pie her, she will become pregnant. We know that, okay? We know that's
mean-
going to happen. We know 100%.
You know what might.
Should I be charged, or should there be any kind of legal thing against me if instead of having sex with her, I just come on her titties? Should she
No.
be charged if she swallows my cum for murder?
No.
Yes.
No?
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Or for
No,
abortion?
obviously not.
Why not?
Because,
Because we
again-
know in this hypothetical, there was an act I could have taken that would have made consciousness. That would have,
Yeah, and you
by failing to take that act, I have deprived a consciousness of existence.
And I agree. You should be allowed to not have sex if you don't want to have a baby. You should be
No,
allowed to not have sex.
it's
You should
not
be
just
allowed
about
to
not
not
It
having
sounds like
sex.
it sounds like you're actually going to hold people criminally accountable for not actually prioritizing the creation of life.
No, not at all. What part of my argument said that? Please
Well, no,
rephrase
because-
that.
Your
Okay, so
opinion-
the argument is that because of the potentiality of life, right? The
Because you
potentiality of
took
life
an
is the reason
action
why.
that
there-
had the
okay,
potentiality of life.
okay. Having
Yeah, it
sex
kind of
with a
messes
woman.
things up.
No, if you can actively put the seed inside of the woman, but you choose to do otherwise,
Yeah, you have
You've
not made the
jeopardized the
choice with the
consciousness.
potential of life.
But it did.
You have-
It
you
was,
have
it was
jeopardized the
potentially-
potentiality of life.
No,
You've
'cause what you
taken
guys are
something
saying-
that could be consciousness and you've destroyed it.
Yes. No, you haven't.
Okay, so let's lock up all
No,
the
because you didn't make the choice to put the cum in your balls. You didn't make the choice to have it have a 100% success rate.
Technically, you did.
just chose not to make the choice to invite yourself into the conversation about potential life. When you have sex, you are inviting yourself into the potential for life. There still needs to be consent there. That's why the rape thing is dicey. That's why kids are dicey, is because you do still need the consent part. And if you don't consensually engage in action, obviously you are not at risk of, you shouldn't be at risk of being charged for that action. But when you make a consensual, active decision to enter into the risk of having a child, you are consenting to the risk of having a child. I am not consenting to the risk of 100% I'm not consenting to having a child just by nature of the fact that I have cum, because I didn't choose to have cum. But I chose to put my dick in a woman with a condom on, knowing that condoms with perfect use are 99% effective, which means they still fail sometimes. And with imperfect use or typical use, they're 80% effective. So
It's
I'm
not
So
people who are using
don't-
condoms that are
don't-
having these abortions. We all know that.
Don't
Yeah.
have sex. Okay, so have sex at your own discretion, knowing that if you don't want to have this child and you abort it, you could be criminally charged.
As we say with
And-
everything else in life, manage your risk tolerance based on your ability to handle the consequences of that risk. So if I, currently, me and my girlfriend, we're not in the position to have a baby. So when we do sex, she has an IUD and I pull out. We use 2 forms of protection to really lower the chance. But if we understand that even doing both of those things, if we have a baby, we are still going to need to take care of that baby. So we are reducing our risk as greatly as possible, knowing that we are still consenting to the possibility that she gets pregnant anyway. If I don't pull out properly and the IUD somehow misses, whatever.
Um,
And this is applicable to you think this is applicable to society, and you think this is a feasible.
Yeah.
You think this could actually make sense.
I think in terms of life, we tend not to worry as much about feasibility. It's why we don't worry about the feasibility of jailing all murderers when we made murder illegal. You think you can just expect people to not kill people? No, but I still think it should be legislated.
Yeah, I just feel like there's so many nuanced differences
That's a pretty good
between
argument.
just walking someone down and killing
There
them
are,
and
but none of
aborting
them-
a
none of them
6-week-old baby.
overcome
That it
much.
just seems like there's just a massive nuanced difference between walking
There
someone
is.
down and just gunning them down.
I agree.
So much of a massive nuanced difference that there probably shouldn't be any jail time for someone
Sure,
of their own
demonstrate
of their own body, their own child, not your family, not your child,
But
not
it's
your
that
body.
child's body.
Killing that, it's not even a child yet. It's just an embryo.
But again, it is a high
Sometimes it's a
likelihood of
fetus,
future
right?
consciousness. Yeah, it is a very high likelihood of future consciousness. And we have decided in other parts of the law that we value that high likelihood of future consciousness.
But we make exceptions. Do you feel like in any so you believe that there's
in
no
rape because there's a consent issue, in risk of harm to the mother because we do have a life that we weigh higher than the less sure life, because her certainty of survival being 100%, being that she's actively conscious, is more important than the prospective one. So when it's what you're talking about, what you're kind of verbalizing,
Why
is
should rape
what
be
we
an
call
exception then?
an interest balancing, because the
Why
interest
should rape
of
be an exception?
because one of the major arguments I'm making is taking a consensual act that invites yourself into that risk. So consent is an interest I am balancing against the interest of preserving life. So just because it's not that it changes the life calculation. It is that interest is balanced against the life calculation interest.
One is arguably trespassing when the other one isn't, right? Like,
Yeah.
even though, yes, it's a life, like,
Yeah. And we're balancing it. And then there's also the state interest generally of keeping people from being incentivized to.
But I mean, couldn't the same
Right,
argument be made for like a broken condom? Hey, I didn't consent to having this child.
No, because you consented to the known risk of condoms breaking. You don't consent to be raped at all.
Yeah,
That is
to me,
by law a.
I mean, like
a
we could
violation.
easily say you consented to rape by walking outside in a certain outfit. I mean, we can
Hold
stretch this to
on.
your example
Okay,
of
wait a
he's right.
second.
no. The
Well,
reason
I
why
get
I'm
what
making
you're
this
saying.
argument,
Yeah.
no. The
you
reason why I'm making
opened a
this
can of
argument,
worms, friend.
the reason why I'm making this argument is because we talked about motherfuckers going outside, driving their car, consenting to
Yeah.
possibly killing somebody. So
Yes.
you walking outside in a certain outfit, you kind of consented to being sexually assaulted. So why can't you push it even further?
Because if you go and
Oh.
drive your car and someone hits you, it is not implied that you consented to that act, right?
Oh,
They
the
have
consent.
damaged you.
That's the compare. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so as
Whereas
long
when
as
you
Oh my
as long
God.
as
assaulted a
you
woman,
so as
you
long as you don't commit so as long as so
happening.
consent so you're trying to take away consent as long as you're the one who's not doing it?
I'm gonna pass the ball to Pixie, please.
That makes
If
if
you're the if you're the
You know what?
rapist,
No.
like,
Rashad
you
is right.
obviously have
I'm trying to tell you.
responsibility.
Whenever you walk outside, you are consenting to something bad happening to you. You
That's not
know it's a
true.
possibility. You know, if you want to completely avoid the possibility of bad things happening, you could just stay at home forever.
No, so here's where we stop that calculation, like I just explained, is when I am fucking a woman and I am deciding I am going to come inside of them and my condom breaks and I come inside of them, I am still consensually coming inside of them. If I were to fuck a girl
No,
with a
you're not,
condom,
because the condom
stop,
broke.
Pixie,
You didn't want the condom
please
to get
listen to the
broken.
second half. Please listen to the second half.
Okay.
If I go out into the world, I am not out here actively raping myself, and then a certain situation changes that if I just continue doing exactly what I'm doing, I'm being raped. This is another person has to come and then violate my consent.
You, by virtue of existing outdoors, are technically consenting to the
For the violation
possibility
of
of
consent?
something bad happening to you.
That's not
just
true.
yes, just like I know that the second I walk outdoors, something bad can happen to me. The question
You are
is,
not consenting to other
you're
people
not living,
violating your consent,
essentially.
though. Yes, if I go outside and I trip and fall, yes, I'm consenting to that risk because nothing came and violated my consent.
Well, hold
But
on.
if someone comes and fucks my ass, I am not consenting to that because they are coming and actively violating my consent.
This is a line that, like, there's a difference between consent and responsibility, right? So consent is just permission, right? Responsibility is like the how much the action should be tied back to your character based on the actions that you've committed. So there's a
Yeah.
difference. Like, so if you are going outside, like, you could maybe make the argument that you could potentially be responsible for tripping or slipping on something, but you didn't consent to doing that necessarily because you didn't like give permission for that to happen. But when it comes to like condom usage, I think this is also maybe a question of like consent or responsibility. Like, you're engaging in a risky action that has the potential of causing pregnancy. There's a level of responsibility there if you as an adult are engaging in that action and a risk is realized, right? Here's an example. Like, let me give you an example, right? I'm a proud like 2A supporter. Let's say I walk outside with my gun and I start like shooting in the air, but I'm shooting at like a diagonal, right? The likelihood of that bullet hitting somebody is actually extraordinarily low. But if it happens, I'm responsible, right? Would you agree I'm responsible? Even if I didn't like intend to kill somebody, like I
know what
still
you're saying.
engaged in an action that wound up killing somebody.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I guess I'm just a little bit confused. I'm stuck at this part. Condoms have a 99% like effective rating, right?
Perfect use.
Um, yeah. So you're saying if the condom breaks, you're essentially consenting to having a potential child. But then when it comes to like the car example, like I'm pretty sure I guess I'm interested in seeing the stats on this, or if we can run it down, because from my understanding, you're probably more likely or more at risk of getting literally hit by another car than you are with a failed condom. But maybe I'm
But
wrong.
no
I'm
one
just
is
saying.
violating my consent when that happens.
Okay.
I am being
To me, I
coerced
don't
into an
understand your
accident by
distinction. I don't
someone.
understand your
I
distinction.
just
Your
told you
somebody
and you
else
interrupted
hurt
it.
me.
No, I just told you
didn't-
it and you interrupted it. I am
No.
not being coerced to continue fucking. I am being coerced into an accident by someone else's car hitting me. So you cannot have consent with coercion. That is why it is not consensual.
I did not consent to the condom breaking. I did not consent for that accident to happen.
Yes,
it just
but you
is.
consented to an act. Yes, and
you consented to an act of walking outside to be hit by a car. Do you see how you can stretch this shit?
No, I was coerced into an accident by someone else coming in and violating. This is the difference.
You consented to an act that could get you hit by a car called walking outside.
It couldn't get me hit by a car unless someone
outside, meaning you consented to an act in which you could be hit by a car.
So when I have
consented sex with a condom, which means you consent. Do you see how these two things are basically the same if you stretch it enough? There's no repeating you could possibly do right now. It's the same thing.
So that you
There's what more could you possibly say? You're cooked. If
you
try to keep this logic,
or can I respond?
Please let me. I'm enjoying hearing myself talk right now.
Sure, go ahead.
You walking outside is a form of consent to you being hit by a car. You're engaging in an act
I hadn't heard that one
hit
yet.
by a vehicle.
Thank you.
No,
So
I mean
here's
that's
the
what you
difference.
say.
When I
That's
am
basically
fucking-
what there is absolutely no difference.
Okay, so here's the difference.
There's no difference.
Oh, well, good. Then maybe I'll just change my mind then because he said
That'd be great if you did.
Anyway,
That'd be great if you did.
So when I'm
walking outside,
oh my god,
until you get
are
this,
fucking
until
so
you
brain
understand.
dead. You cannot let someone.
No, you're the
respond.
one. You're the one who's trying to wiggle your way out of this. Will you accept on some level? Can you please come to peace with the fact that you walking outside is you putting yourself in a position, meaning you have consented on some level to some bad shit happening to you.
This is a really good argument style. I just keep asking the other people, do you agree I am right?
Yeah, well, yeah. Will you accept? No. You didn't have to agree. I'm right. You didn't even have to. You didn't even have to agree. I'm right.
𝕍𝖎, hold on. Both of you stop. Okay, Rashad, stop. Rashad, stop. 𝕍𝖎, stop. Both of you stop. 𝕍𝖎.
Okay, can I respond?
Yeah, hold on. Let me ask you the question because we're going to skip a lot of parts here. 𝕍𝖎, you don't have to agree with this statement. You can disagree that these are disanalogous. But you have to tell us why. And you have yet to do that.
What I've been trying.
You haven't. You keep asserting that you have, but you say things, well, no, that's not true because I'm wearing a red shirt.
How many times have I said it's because someone else came and coerced me into a certain situation? How many times have I fucking said that? Are we retarded or deaf?
How are they coercing you?
How is someone hitting me with the car or raping me?
I'm not talking. No, we're talking about the condom breaking. You're missing the
condom
point.
is breaking.
My point is no one is coercing you when the condom breaks.
No one is coercing you when the accident happens.
If you want me to answer, you dumb fuck.
No one is coercing you.
You are
when
cutting him
the
off,
car hits you.
Oh my god. Yes, someone is coercing me when a car hits me.
Why?
They are physically forcing me to be hit by their car. Are you fucking dumb? Yes, they're
Does someone have to
coercing me.
purposefully hit you with their car for you to be hit by the car?
You don't have to have willful intent to coerce someone to do something.
Again,
if it's truly an accident, then nobody's responsible.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if it's truly an accident and the condom accidentally breaks, why are we holding the people responsible?
That's not truly an accident.
Let me finish saying the difference.
It's negligence.
When I'm fucking someone, I'm accepting that there is a risk with zero outside person being able to intervene. If no one comes in and changes anything for me, I know that condom can still break. When I walk outside, I know for me to get hit by a car, someone else has to hit me with their car. So I'm not consenting to it.
No, the car could just be coming out. Like someone could have let their brakes off and it could just be coming out. No one else could be involved in the process. A meteor could come from the sky and hit you.
That's exactly what I said about tripping and falling. I do think you accept the risk of tripping and falling when you go outside. So no one has to pay your medical bills when you go and trip and fall.
Do I consent to lightning striking me when I walk outside?
You accept the risk of lightning striking you, yes.
Okay, that's okay.
That's why no one can be forced to pay your medical bills when lightning strikes you. You have to pay your medical bills.
As consenting to it happening. I don't understand how this distinction is not made clear enough. Just because
it is not always the same.
Can hit me when I walk outside does not mean I'm actively consenting to it hitting me.
But in all legal respects, you are responsible.
Doesn't mean I'm consenting to getting pregnant.
But in all legal outcomes of you getting hit by lightning, you are responsible for every consequence of you getting hit by lightning, right?
Okay. I don't even know how to begin here. No,
are you held responsible for your medical bills? Are you held responsible for whatever you do afterward? If it were to drive you insane and you were to cap somebody, you're fucking responsible.
One, I'm asking a moral question, but two, even legally, let's say OSHA. Let's say you are working at a construction site or whatever,
and the beam you're using or the beam on top of you is rusty, it falls on you. You know when you go to work, right, that there is a possibility of an accident happening. We
Sure.
all know that. You would not be held legally responsible for the fucking beam falling on you.
What do you mean? Yeah,
or
no,
on someone else, to be clear.
Yeah.
So if you take all necessary precautions, if you
Workplace
take
probably
all
would.
necessary precautions to reduce the
Sure.
risk to a manageable level, right? Because
Okay.
we recognize that there's always going to be risk in these activities. But
Mhm.
if you do reduce it, if you can prove and show and document that, hey, I took steps X, Y, Z, A, B,
Yeah.
C, then if the risk happens, we don't prosecute anyone. No one is fined. No one is held responsible.
Like,
That's
what do
not
you?
true.
That's not true at all.
Hold on. Have you heard of workers' compensation?
Yeah.
The employer is responsible at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Because they are the ones who own the property. They are the ones
Mhm.
that the worker is going to, and then the worker gets hurt, they get paid.
Yeah.
But the
What is it?
worker himself
you
who
have
did
signed
these
into an
things,
Technology,
agreement.
the
You
company
can't
would
sue them.
essentially be the condom. Like straight
No,
up,
no, no, no,
right?
no,
Like,
no. The
would be
company is
held
one
responsible.
party.
The condom
Yeah.
breaking,
No, the company is one
when it
party.
shouldn't
The
have
company is
broken.
one party.
The workplace
No,
being dangerous when it shouldn't have been dangerous.
no, the
No.
company is one party. Like the worker
Yeah.
is a different party, and then like whatever material the worker happened to get injured on, like that's like the condom in this analogy, right? So
Yes.
you're right that like taking actions, or maybe not the condom, but like sex, right? And so yeah, you could take actions to like prevent risks from occurring, but
Yeah.
like even you can be in fact expected to take actions to prevent risks from occurring. But even if those risks materialize, depending on like what kind of action was taken, you can still be held responsible in some way. Workers' compensation, child support.
Only
right?
if you're the
con-
company.
let-
If
let me-
you're the
let me- wait,
worker,
wait,
you
let me ask you
aren't.
this. Let me ask you this: if the condom breaks, should I have to pay child support?
No.
Really? So I
Yeah.
could just say I was wearing a condom and it broke, and now I can just impregnate as many women as possible, and I'm never going to be held liable
I
for
never
child
said that you
support.
should try to impregnate as many women as
I'm not
possible.
saying no. I never said that I should try. What I'm saying is, if I did, if I started like cycle impregnating women across the East Coast, like that one JP guy, and then like that's what I was doing,
Like, I'm just
and
bad at
and
using
every time I said in very credible way, because I'm a very manipulative person, I was wearing a condom and it just broke. Okay, you're saying that you can't come after me now because hey, the condom broke.
It's like there's a difference between like ill intent, right? You're saying like, oh, I'm like lying, like I'm actually purposely like stealth impregnating woman, right? Which is a violation of consent in that case.
I'm not saying stealthing. I'm saying just like
Yeah.
lying, like arguing that I was
Yeah,
using.
but you would be aware at some point that your condom keeps breaking if you just keep going and going, right?
Well, no. What if I have like an unlucky streak where I have like 10 pregnancies because my condoms keep breaking? Now I'm not responsible for any of those kids.
Wait, so knowledge of the risk is accepting that risk?
No,
what
I don't think
Screenshot is
knowledge of
saying?
the risk is accepting the
Okay,
risk.
That's-
okay.
I don't-
For the last bit,
I'm never paying
here.
child support ever again.
I wanna-
Hell yeah, I'm just
wanna-
gonna cycle impregnate.
So first of all, this panel is a meme factory. We're talking about eating shit, condoms breaking, and no one paying child support. It's a meme factory from start to finish. I wanted to talk in this very last bit. I want to talk about legal consequences. So to 𝕵𝖎𝖙 and to 𝕾𝖚 both, and this is for both of you, right? We talked a lot about there should be at least some form of legal consequences if a grown woman, right? We could set child stuff aside. We set rape and incest and all these things. We make a law where it's illegal to have an abortion after 10, 12 weeks, whatever. A woman violates that law knowingly and gets an abortion. You think they should have some sort of legal ramification, correct?
The woman?
Yes, a woman.
Yeah.
For me, it depends on the. I think you would need to provide a burden, obviously, for willful intent
Assuming
to break the law.
Let's assume that's true. They've broken the law.
No.
It's true. Yes.
Yeah, no, I think if you can demonstrate that they knew it was illegal to get an abortion, they got it. They should suffer some sort of consequence.
Consequences. We don't have to talk about what.
Yeah.
Great.
They're adults.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Should the father as well?
It depends on his level of involvement in it. Yeah.
At what
He's an
point in his
accessory.
That's the right
involvement,
answer.
like
If the father is aware, he's an accessory. If he actively coerced her to do it, he's guilty of conspiracy
So,
to commit.
aware
same
he's an
thing.
accessory to the crime, so he doesn't even have to
Yes.
help with it. He doesn't have to drive her. He doesn't even have to agree with it. He's just
By the
aware and
nature
didn't
that it's
report
his-
her.
By the nature of it being his kid, yeah, he has participated.
So
in the
unless he
circumstances
reports
of the abortion.
his baby mama for getting
Yeah.
an that she's going to get an abortion unless he calls up the cops or prevents her in some way, then he should be held legally liable.
If he
for the
provides a good faith
abortion.
attempt to stop her from doing it, no. But you'd have to demonstrate that.
Okay.
Like, just because he
I
didn't have the
would.
power to
Wait, so
stop
if you made a good faith attempt to not get pregnant, shouldn't you
No.
just be absolved of whatever consequences come from it?
No.
Like, if you can prove that you made a good faith attempt,
I made a good
If you
faith
ma-
attempt to not be strong enough to kill somebody with a punch, so I can punch anybody I want and never go to jail for murdering them. Because I made a good faith attempt to be a weak bitch that could never possibly punch somebody.
going
You're
out of
saying
your way
if
to
I make-
actively punch someone in the face and
Yeah.
and using a condom during sex to make sure they don't get
No,
pregnant.
the different part, the condom is the making myself as weak as possible, right? I'm lowering the chances that I could ever kill somebody with a punch, but presented with the opportunity to, right? Presented with an embryo or a fetus in me, I'm going to take the willful act to try to kill something. That is the same thing as me trying to make myself as weak as possible. And then when the opportunity comes to kill somebody with a punch, I'm still going to try and do it.
So why did you bring up if someone took the necessary steps to make sure XYZ thing didn't
Because
happen, then they shouldn't be?
Wick is positing a question of the father technically can't force a woman to not get an abortion. So should he, in all cases where he is aware and doesn't report her, go to jail? I'm saying no. If
No, it
he
doesn't have to
tries
go to
really
jail,
hard
like
get
some
her
sort of
not-
some
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
punishment, right?
But if he is sitting there begging her, if he is sitting there providing her money to help care for the child, demonstrating his ability and willingness to care for the child, and she still gets the abortion, obviously, no, he shouldn't get any punishment for her getting the abortion because he can't physically stop her.
Why not? If I, as a man, if I saw a child in danger and I saw Pixie trying to kill this kid, okay, Pixie's come with a knife trying to stab
Sure.
I'm going to stab this child, and I
Yeah.
don't stop her, and I don't know about legally, but morally, I think I'm responsible for that.
You could argue that if you want to argue it morally, but legally, as long as you were like, stop, fucking stop, like you're still technically intervening.
Oh wait. Okay, if we're gonna say
From
this
a legal
morally, do you think that you can morally then argue if you know a woman is going to try to get an abortion, essentially keep her in the house for 9 months, not let her go outside, whatever, essentially like keep her as a prisoner, until she gives birth? Are you like morally obliged to even do that? Because if she,
No.
if she gets free, she'll kill the child. So you're morally
No.
obliged to,
No,
right?
because you're choosing to commit a crime instead of reporting her to the relevant authorities.
Well,
Or
no,
essentially
we're
becoming
not
a
saying what
vigilante.
is it. We're separating crime here, criminal justice. I'm asking you morally.
I'm
Let's say
saying
you.
morally, you shouldn't choose to commit a crime instead of just reporting to the relevant authorities.
Okay,
that are
I'm
more
saying
equipped to
fine.
deal with
Let's
it.
twist the hypothetical a little bit. The cops are useless in the city. Nothing's gonna get done. Whatever. Um, does that mean that you have a moral responsibility, obligation to kidnap this woman for 9 months?
An obligation, no. But would you be morally
You
wrong
have
to
an
keep a
obligation
woman
to
from
save the
aborting a
child's life,
baby?
though?
No. Huh?
I'm confused. I thought you
Well,
said you have a moral obligation to save the child's life.
I mean, now we're getting into the nitty gritty of how am I keeping her in the house without the threat of force, which could also kill the baby.
Well, what is it? I mean, not really.
Like, if
You
I
can
tell her I'm not going to pay your rent if you leave this house, then yeah, I
Oh,
think
but you can
100%
tie
you have the
someone down
responsibility
and
to do
force them
that.
to eat food or whatever, and
That
Okay.
will
all of
kill the
that
baby.
risks harm to the baby just as much as you're trying to
Well,
abort it.
absolutely not. There's a very big difference between like somebody being kidnapped, as essentially like you're forcing them to give birth or whatever. You can still force them to eat food versus somebody
I
who's like
have to
going
use
to fucking
violence to coerce her.
take drugs and make sure that baby's expelled, or like
What can
a
I
drug
possibly
tender.
do to keep her in that house that is safer than that, other than use physical
Fire her.
violence if she tries to leave?
Well, it's again, you don't have to go full physical violence. You're stronger, I assume, than a lot of women. You could tie them up.
I mean, that's still physical violence. I mean, that would
Yeah, but
still.
it's okay. It's a physical violence in a much, much, much lesser degree and much lesser harm to the baby than her
Yeah,
doing
but I'm
something
saying
kind of
the average
abortion.
person does not have that responsibility because the average person is not equipped to balance that chance.
Why don't we have
Yeah.
to? Why do we have to do that? But before,
I'll answer the question. I would do it. Yeah, like
Yeah?
if I could, yeah, if I was responsible for my child and I knew that someone was trying to kill my child, I have an obligation to physically stop this person from killing my child.
Why is that even your child? Don't you have an obligation to like try to save the children in general? That's why you're like pro like stopping abortion laws?
No,
Or like
He
I don't
doesn't
have
believe that.
I don't have an obligation, like me personally, to look after
Yeah.
anybody else's child but mine.
wait, so then what's
I
the whole
think
point for advocating
I
for
think well
anti-choice
I think
laws?
the state does have an obligation to stop murderers.
what is the state except like an extension of like our will as people? You know,
Our
like
will, but not our individual responsibility.
Yeah, there's
Okay,
a
let's take
difference.
this brief moment to read these super chats that have been piling up, which I've been neglecting. I've been aborting, and I repent for it. And we will bring them to term at this moment, and we'll read through these super chats. Keep sending more, gang, and we'll get through it. I see you. You're pleased to be read, and I hear it. $10 from Honkler303. Don't forget to like the stream. That's true. Like the stream if you're watching this on YouTube, or subscribe. It's great. We have content like this all the time. $5 from Slongy Stew to say, I don't care if people have abortions. I don't want to pay for the abortion or the unwanted kid. However, abortion has to be considered immoral. Thank you for the $5. $5 Canadian, which are lesser, but we still take them and we still love them, from Rabid Wombat. What's the difference between a fetus a month before birth and a month after? Why the difference in rights? Thank you for $5. And $5 Canadian again from Testicle Johnson to say, there are consequences to actions. Keep your hog wrapped up so you don't need to trip her in a Walmart parking lot and make it look like an accident. Thank you for the $5.
Oh my God,
But with that
dude.
said, and thank you for the subs, Polar Knight, and all the rest of the people who are subbing on Twitch. Keep doing it. This is how I stay alive, is you give me money. To kind of like draw this home, right? My issue here, my problem is, again, like I said, abortion, I don't like it. I think it is immoral, right? If you choose to get an abortion, you don't need to. I think it is immoral. But when we talk about legality, when we talk about the legal issues at play, we have seen how some of these laws play out in places like Texas, where physicians are terrified of performing an abortion even to save the life of the mother, because they are worried about how the courts will see that, and the risk of them getting prosecuted is too great. So they, again, what this is leading to, boots on the ground, is people dying who don't need to die. And that is my concern. I don't want to live in a world where a physician hesitates before performing a life-saving operation on a mother because he's worried he's going to go to jail. Now, I understand that this is rare. This isn't the most cases, but I think it is something that we need to address and we need to have proper awareness of, because regardless of what we think theoretically, this is what's happening. But I want to give all these wonderful people a chance to have closing thoughts, closing statements, and we're going to start with Rashad. Go ahead, Rashad. What are your...
Oh man. Yeah. I think women reserve the right to abortion. It's none of my business what someone else's family does with what baby that's not mine, and their body that's not mine. It's just not my concern. As long as it's at a reasonable time frame. And that's pretty much it. I don't really I subbed in. I was woefully unprepared for this debate. Definitely did not prepare my best. So yeah, but great arguments from everybody else.
Okay. No, well, we thank you for subbing in. We do appreciate Rashad. Rashad, you're a hero to me. Okay. Lactoid, go ahead.
Yeah, no, big shout out, Rashad, stepping in last minute. Always appreciate that. I think that it proves a lot of grit and character to be able to do that and to do so well. Jeb10, thank you so much for picking me. I thought you did fantastic. And Pixie, really appreciated the arguments. I thought you did great as well. I thought this was a fantastic panel all the way around. I love you all. Thank you so much for having me. I warned Jeb10 ahead of time. I'm actually not like super pro-life. I think that, abortion between 8 to 12 weeks, when the frontal cortex begins to develop, I think that anything after that is probably not okay. But beforehand, I'm generally okay with it. But I'm a big fan of birth control. I think this is a great way to avoid abortion, and it's a great way to solve a lot of other societal issues. So go get it, put it in the water supply. I don't fucking know. We got to do something. If you like what I had to say, you can find me at 𝕾𝖍𝖎 on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks.
No, gang, check him out. I do always appreciate you. Plan B in the water supply. That might be a next debate. Okay, that might be the next debate. Pixie, go ahead. What do you got for us?
Hey, I'm Pixie. You can follow me, 𝕾𝖎𝖙. As you guys know, I am pro-choice. I just believe that, basically I care about human consciousness when it comes to defining what a person is. So anything before that is kind of whatever to me. I'm very worried about the current state of the United States in general. I think like essentially like full-term abortion bans, which it seems like a lot of states are trying to implement, are a gross violation of human autonomy, bodily autonomy. I think it is reckless as well. I think it can lead to people trying to self-induce abortion, which I think is super dangerous. Can lead to just 2 deaths instead of even like 1 if you decide to consider that fetus a human. And honestly, this sounds weird, but I take a similar position when it comes to like gun control, for example. And the reason why I say that is because I don't think if you ban all guns, you're gonna suddenly have no gun usage. Same thing with abortions. I don't think if you ban or try to make a full-term ban when it comes to all abortions, people are going to suddenly stop doing it. What's going to end up happening, which we've already seen, is that people are going to be put in precarious situations where they tried to self-induce it, risk their life, and essentially potentially die. So yeah, I want to avoid that. I want people to live.
Well, we want people to live too. Thanks for being here. I know we had some technical issues at the beginning, but it's been a great panel after we got through all that, right? Thank you for being here. That was awesome. 𝕵𝖎𝖎, the star of the show, give us your closing thoughts. I know you were frustrated. I know you were getting interrupted a lot, but you were interrupting a lot too. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So you get your final statement. No one will interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I'm like, and anybody who watches sports can understand. I'm like the basketball player yelling at the ref. Okay, I gotta advocate for myself when I'm on the court. But no, everyone here was great. I also respect Rashad for coming in on like fucking 2 minutes notice, basically. And it's a really tough topic, especially when you get into like the legal stuff of it. That's why I wanted Lactoid with me. But yeah, generally, I agree that I don't want to live in a world where doctors are scared. So that's why I've repeatedly supported some sort of federal framework being passed that specifically protects those outlier cases like rape, threat to the life of the mother, etc. Unfortunately, even the Democrats aren't trying to pass that federally for some reason. It's almost like they don't actually care because they want to use that to fight for more. But again, my personal take, I'm not convinced that current consciousness is what matters. I've still not seen anybody demonstrate a way where in points where we could argue temporary loss of consciousness, why past consciousness would matter unless it was informing future consciousness. Future consciousness is always what we protect. It's historically what we've always protected. I have not seen a single exception. And so I'm not backing off on this idea that I'm going to try to find the right point in time where I want to guess that consciousness begins, because I don't care, because I don't think that's what we protect. We know there's a point in pregnancy where, from what I've seen, 85+% of babies make it to term healthy. That should be the line, since we know that's where it becomes overwhelmingly the case that you are trying to eliminate a life that you chose to create by having sex. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really stream anywhere, but everybody was great.
No, thanks for being here, gang. He doesn't stream anywhere, so he's a WhickTV exclusive, so you can come see him on my show. Gang, $5 from the trip to say we're all in agreement that pro-choice is the better take, right? Pro-life wants to take freedom away. Fetuses don't have freedoms to take away. Thank you for the $5. You're coming in at the end. We've already covered that topic. Gang, what do we got coming up? Tomorrow, I might do call-ins. I might take the day off. I don't know. Thursday, we're going to talk about D&D. Has it gone woke? We have some great people coming on. Is it sexist? Is it racist? We're gonna find out. Friday, me and Rashad are teaming up to take on people to talk about censorship from the left specifically. That should be fun. You agreed to this, Rashad. You're looking.
My
like
memory.
Check our DMs. Okay, maybe that won't happen. We'll find out. Okay.
No, it will happen. It's just I'm now consenting to this. I'm now officially making it known that I'm.
And great. And then next week we have a show, and it's going to be on the question: if you were trapped in the woods, who would you rather be trapped with? A streamer or a bear? We're gonna find out. We're gonna figure it out. It'll be fun. Gang, tune in. Lacto, are you still gonna be streaming after this? Are you?
I'm not gonna be doing it for much longer.
Then we're gonna go to someone else. We're gonna go to Rora. So say hi to Rora, spam those emotes, and let her know that WhickTV sent you. Okay. Oh, by the way, no, we'll do it next week. Don't worry. Disregard. Okay. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.